Chapter 568. The tomb of the divines and demons was located in the deepest part of the door of the ancient god. It was also the place with the most precious opportunities. Although the door of the ancient god had opened many times in the past, no one had been able to enter the tomb of the divines and demons. The last time someone entered the tomb of the divines and demons was a long time ago. It was also after the opening of the mausoleum that the legendary five-crowned king appeared in the barbarian race. Therefore, if the tomb of the divines and demons opened, it meant that another powerful person would appear in the barbarian race. It was a sign of the barbarian race's rise. This time around, when the door of the ancient god opened, the person who had high hopes and could enter the tomb of the gods and devils was naturally Tuoba Shang. At this moment, in the deepest part of the door of the ancient god, there was a piece of land. The entire land looked as if it was dyed in blood. It was dark red in color. In the deepest part of the land, there was a mysterious tomb shrouded in dense black fog. The tomb was in ruins, and the tombstones were in ruins. It looked like an ancient land that had been sealed for a long time. This was the tomb of the divines and demons. Outside the tomb of the divines and demons, there were two parties facing each other. One of the parties was covered in blood and panting. It was obvious that they were at a disadvantage. It was the Muron family's camp. However, at this moment, the Muron family's camp looked carefully. There were only Muron Yu, Muron Xiu, Muron Fang, Muron Sun, Long Nu, Shui Rua, White Lion Saint, and Black Tiger Saint. On the other side, the Tuoba family's camp included Tuoba Shang, Tuoba Lai, and the others. There were more than 10 people from the Tuoba family alone. In addition, there were external reinforcements such as the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and Mo Yi. There were more than 20 people from the Tuoba family's camp. The strength of the two camps was not equal. There was a huge gap between them. Tuoba Shang, no matter what, you are still a quadruple crown king. How could you do such a despicable thing? You attacked us one by one before we even gathered. Mulanue's pretty face was ashen as she stared at the indifferent Tuoba Shang. She gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. After the two parties entered the door of the ancient god, they were going to search for opportunities and enter the tomb of the divines and demons. However, to their surprise, Tuoba Shang led some of his subordinates and took the initiative to kill some of the people from the Mulan family's camp. As a result, only 8 people remained from the Mulan family's camp. The winner takes all. This time, whoever obstructs me from obtaining the ancestors' inheritance will die. Tuoba Shang's tone was extremely cold and firm. It was as if he had a strong conviction. This time, Tuoba Shang had made up his mind to become the young king. Whoever stood in his way, he would mercilessly crush them. Sensing the determination and killing intent in Tuoba Shang's words, Mulanue's expression changed slightly. This time, Tuoba Shang's determination was too great. No one could stop him. But for some reason, Yiguchen's figure suddenly appeared in Mulanue's mind. He said he could deal with Tuoba Shang. It would be great if that was true. Mulanue sighed. The current situation was extremely bad for the Muron family. Even the lion and tiger sages, who had been arrogant and boastful before, had to back down at this moment, not daring to be in the limelight. Their expressions kept changing as they looked at each other. Just when the situation was extremely dangerous for the Muron family. 2 wind-breaking sounds suddenly sounded. Everyone looked over and saw the wooden bell spirit and Yiguchen. Mulanue's eyes were filled with joy. With the addition of these two, their situation would be slightly better. On the other side, Tuoba Shang frowned slightly, but that was all. With his current cultivation, he didn't even care about the Triple Crown champion. Naturally, he didn't care about the wooden bell spirit and the others. Moreover, even if the wooden bell spirit and Yiguchen came, the Muron family only had 10 people in total. On the Tuoba family's side, there were over 20 people. In terms of numbers, they were twice as many as the Muron family. Moreover, in terms of quality, the Tuoba family still had the advantage. Mulanue, if you retreat now, I can spare your life. You should know that with me around, you won't be able to obtain the ancestors' inheritance. Tuoba Shang's tone was as cold as ice. Although he didn't care about Mu Lanue and the others, if they fought, their side would suffer great losses. There were still all kinds of dangers in the tomb of the divines and devils. Tuoba Shang, what's the point of saying this now? It's impossible for us to retreat. Mu Lanue naturally wouldn't retreat just because of Tuoba Shang's words. Tuoba Shang's expression turned serious, as if he wanted to attack. At this moment, the Golden Sun Saint suddenly stepped forward and said in a low voice, Lei Jiuyo isn't here. Where did he go? Tuoba Shang frowned. Lei Jiuyo was considered the top combat power on their side, but he still hadn't come. If you're waiting for Lei Jiuyo, then don't bother. He'll never come. Yi Guqin said lightly. At this moment, the people from both sides gathered their attention on Yi Guqin. The meaning of this sentence was obvious. Lei Jiuyo was dead. As for who killed him, it was obvious from his tone. You mean, you killed Lei Jiuyo? The Golden Sun Saint's tone was faint with a trace of disbelief. Lei Jiuyo was the same as him. He had obtained the life and death intent, and his strength was much stronger than before. If this young man in front of him had killed Lei Jiuyo, wouldn't that mean that he could kill him too? How could the Golden Sun Saint believe it? The people from Tuoba Shang's side sneered. Tuoba Shang didn't even look at Yi Guqin. However, Mo Yi took a deep look at Yi Guqin. Not only Tuoba Shang's side, but Mu Lanue's side was also shocked. What? You killed Lei Jiuyo? Mu Lanue's tone was a trace of surprise. I think he's boasting again. When the time comes, we'll just let him deal with Tuoba Shang. The Lion and Tiger Saints sneered, as if they didn't believe it. Mu Lanxuan also shook her head. Now that they were in a bad situation, Yi Guqin was still boasting. He really didn't understand the situation. On the other hand, the noisy Mu Lanfang wanted to say something, but when she saw Yi Guqin's cold eyes, she shut her mouth bitterly. In fact, she didn't believe it either. However, she had seen Yi Guqin kill Tuoba Shang and the others with her own eyes, so she didn't dare to say anything at this moment. Only the wooden bell spirit looked at Yi Guqin with her green eyes. Although she was shocked, she believed it. Could it be that the fluctuation in the lightning fire ancient cave was him fighting with Lei Jiuyo? The wooden bell spirit guessed. Tuoba Shang, we haven't even entered the tomb of the divinity and you want to fight to the death? There are endless dangers in the tomb of the divinity and devil, and there are also humanoid apes. If you kill us all, you'll lose a layer of skin. Mu Lanue shouted. Now that things had come to this, she couldn't give up. She could only use this as a threat. Tuoba Shang's face changed slightly. Indeed, there were more troublesome existences in the tomb of the divinity and devil. If Tuoba Shang killed them now, even if he could kill everyone in the Mulan camp, he would lose more than half of his people. At that time, it would be difficult to enter the tomb of the divinity and devil, and the loss would outweigh the gain. Mu Lanue, I'll give you a chance to live. Tuoba Shang said and led his people into the tomb of the divinity and devil. The people in the Mulan camp would help him share some of the pressure. Who's using who? It's impossible for you to obtain the ancestors' inheritance and become the young king. Mu Lanue said firmly. If Tuoba Shang became the young king of the barbarian tribe, it would be the end of the Mulan family. Let's go in. Mu Lanue waved her hand, and Yi Guqin and the others followed. Chapter 569. Inside the tomb of the gods and devils, the atmosphere was gloomy and black fog surged. Yi Guqin followed Mu Lanue and the others into the tomb. He felt that the ancient god tactic in his body was involuntarily circulating. I wonder if I can find the opportunity to break through to one-star ancient god in the tomb of the gods and devils. Yi Guqin thought to himself. He was at most a half-star ancient god. Although his power increased a lot after he transformed into the ancient god form, he could not use the special techniques of the ancient god clan. If he could really become a one-star ancient god, then Yiguchen would be able to use some of the techniques of the ancient god clan and his power would increase again. The people from the Tuoba and Mulanua camps moved forward cautiously and vigilantly. Not long after, they gradually went deep into the tomb of the gods and devils. But they had not completely entered. Because it was rumored that the real opportunity was in the core area, inside a large tomb. As for the outer perimeter, most of them were broken walls and ruins. As they ventured deeper, the black demonic chi drifting in the air grew increasingly dense. Suddenly, a thick cloud of demon chi floated in front of them. Everyone, be careful. Quickly use your totem power to protect your body. Mulanua shouted in a low voice. Hearing this, the people around her burst out their totem power and released balls of light to protect their bodies. On the other side, the Tuoba family did the same. But there was one person who could not protect himself in time. The black demon chi had completely enveloped them. Tuoba Leng. Tuoba Shang frowned and the others quickly scattered. It was too late to release their totem power. Tuoba Leng suddenly knelt on the ground and wailed. He crazily scratched his body as if he was going to tear off his skin and flesh. Finally, Tuoba Leng's eyes were bright red like blood in front of everyone's shocked gazes. He suddenly raised his head and let out a wild roar. Thick black hair emerged from all over his body. His body swelled and in an instant, he turned into a monster that looked like a black ape. Seeing this scene, everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. Although they had some understanding of it before, it was a living person that had turned into a monster right before their eyes. This sort of shock could not be said to be small. Roar! Tuoba Leng, who had transformed into a black ape, stretched out his claws and attacked the Golden Sun Saint Sun. The Golden Sun Saint threw out a punch. The metal-type totem power surged and his fist was even harder than metal. However, when the fist landed on the ape that Tuoba Leng had transformed into, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. What a tough body! The Golden Sun Saint was also stunned. The strength of this ape's physical body was beyond his expectations. At this moment, Tuoba Shang's body flashed and he threw out a flaming demon tyrant fist. It directly pierced through the ape's chest and killed it. Seeing this, Mulanua and the others became vigilant again. However, it didn't take long for many howls to be heard from within the black fog. Vaguely, there were some pitch-black figures flashing in the devil chi. Oh no, everyone, be careful. Those apes are coming. Mulanua's expression changed. Numerous figures shot out from within the black fog just as her voice sounded. Every single one of them carried an incomparably ferocious aura. They were humanoid apes with blood-red eyes and pitch-black fur all over their bodies. These apes were the barbarian tribe saints and saintesses who had been assimilated by the devil chi after entering the tomb of the divines and demons. Boom! 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 In the next moment, the troops from both camps began to engage in a chaotic battle with the demonized apes. A humanoid ape charged at Yiguchen. It stretched out its sharp claws, which were like sharp knives. It could even tear the armor of a divine spiritual inscription weapon into pieces. Even a spiritual inscription divine weapon armor would be left with deep cracks under the claws. Yiguchen activated his totem power and fought with the demonized ape. This body has been tempered by the devil chi and is even harder than metal. Although it still can't compare to my body, Yiguchen thought to himself. Although the demonized ape's body couldn't compare to his, Yiguchen's body couldn't be measured by common sense. His body was even more monstrous than a monster's. Of course, the demonized ape's body was several times stronger than the barbarians who had trained their bodies since childhood. What kind of existence is this devil chi? It can actually make people change like this. Yiguchen also felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. He once again punched the demonized ape's body, producing a dull metallic sound. The demonized ape only let out a howl before charging forward again. Yiguchen frowned slightly and directly activated his perfect knowledge sea. His fierce soul power condensed into a soul flow and bombarded the demonized ape. However, to Yiguchen's surprise, the demonized ape wasn't affected at all. It doesn't have a knowledge sea. Yiguchen revealed a look of surprise. Logically speaking, as long as it was a living creature, even if it hadn't condensed a knowledge sea, it should have soul power. However, this demonic ape had an empty skull and was already a corpse-like existence. Without a knowledge sea, Yiguchen's soul attack was naturally useless. It seems that everything is because of the devil chi, Yiguchen thought to himself. His heart moved, and a light bulb flashed in his mind. He secretly activated the ancient god tactic in his body, and traces of ancient god power spread out. Yiguchen once again punched out, and with the ancient god power, it collided with the demonized ape. Bang! The result of this collision was different. The demonized ape let out a shrill scream. The place where Yiguchen's fist hit was emitting black gas as if it had been corroded. It was easily penetrated by Yiguchen's fist. It's indeed useful. Yiguchen's eyes lit up. It seemed that the ancient god tactic was the best way to restrain the devil chi. Moreover, only Yiguchen had such a method. No one else, including Tuoba Shang, had such a method. This meant that Yiguchen would have the advantage in the tomb of the gods and devils. At this moment, Yiguchen's gaze was attracted by the commotion not far away. He saw the dragoness protecting Shui Rua as they were surrounded by 3 demonized apes. As for the others, they were all entangled by the demonized apes. They couldn't even protect themselves, let alone help the dragoness. As for Shui Rua, although she tried her best to help, her strength was still limited. Yiguchen's footsteps flashed, and he directly rushed to the dragoness's side. One of the demonized apes stretched out its sharp claws and clawed at the dragoness's head. The dragoness's expression suddenly changed. At this critical moment, Yiguchen's fist came and collided with the demonized ape's claw. Under the dragoness's astonished gaze, the demonized ape's entire arm was directly shattered by Yiguchen. "You've become stronger again." The dragoness's eyes were filled with joy as she sighed. Yiguchen nodded slightly. His strength had indeed become stronger, but more importantly, it was the power of the ancient god tactic that could restrain the devil chi. Just after Yiguchen helped the dragoness and Shui Rua out of danger, Mu Lanyue's voice sounded again. "Everyone, follow me into the depths of the tomb of the gods and devils. We can't delay here." Yiguchen, the dragoness, and the others' eyes flickered as they followed Mu Lanyue's footsteps. On the other side, Tuoba Shang led his subordinates and began to break out of the encirclement. After a fierce struggle, Yiguchen and the others finally broke out of the encirclement of the devil chi. The surroundings became clear in an instant, and the scene in front of them shocked Yiguchen. Chapter 570. What appeared in front of Yiguchen was a huge mausoleum. It was huge because it was hundreds of feet high and hundreds of feet wide. It was more like an ancient mountain than a mausoleum. It was impossible for it to be an ordinary mausoleum. The entire mausoleum was pitch black and stained with mottled dark red blood. Innumerable images of primordial times and totems of savage beasts were engraved on it. There were also some towering giants holding the sun, the moon, and the stars. They were the ancient god clan. This is the real tomb of gods and demons. All the barbarian holy sons and holy daughters were amazed. This huge mausoleum was where the true opportunity of the entire door of the ancient god was. All the other treasures and opportunities could not be compared to this mausoleum. Those are the ancestors of my barbarian tribe. Mu Lanua looked at the giants and couldn't help but be fascinated. Holding a star in his hand and cracking the earth with a stomp. What kind of supreme might was that? Even though they knew that these giants were their ancestors, they did not know who they were. Only Yiguchen knew something about the ancient god clan after he got the information from the 5-colored golden core. But Wan Yanlan and the others should know some secrets about the ancient god clan, Yiguchen thought. After they entered the tomb of gods and demons, the demonized apes only flashed in the black fog in the distance and screeched. They did not dare to leave the demon Qi and approach the tomb of gods and demons as if they were afraid of this place. While everyone was shocked by the majesty of the tomb of gods and demons, Yiguchen noticed that there were some images engraved on it. They were the ancient god clan's pitch-black demonized apes fighting. The pitch-black demonized apes were also like ancient mountains. They held long sticks and fought with the ancient god clan. Is that the ancient god clan's opponent, the source of the demon Qi? Yiguchen looked at the pitch-black demonized apes and did not have any clue. Let's go in, Mulanue said. Now, both sides had suffered some losses after the previous battle. Although no one from the Mulan's camp died, they were all injured. On the other hand, a few people from Tuoba's camp had died. The remaining people were also injured. Although Tuoba Shang wanted to get rid of Mulanue and the others, he was powerless to do so. If he made a move, there wouldn't be many people left on his side. Moreover, the Golden Sun Saint Sun and the other foreign aid wouldn't be 100% loyal to him. Moreover, Tuoba Shang had to preserve his strength, and it was naturally impossible for him to go all out at this moment if he wanted to seize the fortune within the Tomb of Fiend Gods. The two sides faced each other before slowly moving towards the Tomb of the Gods and Devils. The entrance to the Tomb of the Fiend Gods was an enormous door that was like the enormous mouth of a primeval beast. It was pitch black and emitted a ghastly aura. However, no one was willing to leave after coming here. If they fought with their lives on the line, they might be able to survive. They might even be able to obtain a fortuitous encounter and become a young king. Therefore, no one was willing to give up. Everyone entered the Tomb of the Gods and Devils. The moment Yiguchen stepped into the mausoleum, the surrounding light seemed to be swallowed up. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet, and only the footsteps of the saints and saintesses could be heard. At this moment, a huge door suddenly appeared in front of them. It was also 100 feet tall and was somewhat similar to the door of the ancient gods. However, the door was closed and carved with various ancient patterns, reliefs, and totems. This is the entrance to the Tomb of the Gods and Devils. However, no one has been able to enter all this time. The last time someone entered was when the Five-Crown King was still alive, some saints said. The Five-Crown King naturally wasn't Yiguchen, but the previous Five-Crown King. Damn it, how do we enter? Tuoba Shang stood in front of the door and stretched out his palm. He activated the totem power in his body as if he wanted to use his bloodline to sense and open the door of the mausoleum. Meanwhile, Yiguchen was hidden at the side, sizing up the door of the mausoleum. At this moment, Yiguchen's sharp eyes suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a circular sunken pattern in a corner of the door. He quietly moved to Yiguchen's side. The rest of the people were either sizing up the door or observing Tuoba Shang's movements. Therefore, no one noticed Yiguchen. Could this be? He looked at the sunken pattern. Yiguchen suddenly understood and quietly took out a piece of ancient jade carved with the pattern of the 5 divine beasts. Yiguchen had obtained 2 items from the corpse of the mysterious barbarian race elite in the bottomless demon abyss. They were the 5-colored golden core and the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade. Yiguchen was almost certain that the corpse of the barbarian race elite belonged to the legendary 5-crown king of the barbarian race. Yiguchen had never understood the use of the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade. Now, it seemed that, Yiguchen's eyes flashed as he quietly pressed the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade into the sunken pattern. Rumble, a moment later, the door that had been silent all this time suddenly opened. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on Tuoba Shang at the first moment. It really is Tuoba Shang. He succeeded. Tuoba Shang can open the door of the tomb with his own bloodline. Could it be that he is the chosen successor of the ancestors? It seems that Tuoba Shang will be the young king this time. Some of the saints exclaimed when they saw that Tuoba Shang could open the door. On the other hand, Mulanue and the others in the Mulan camp were extremely upset. Didn't this mean that Tuoba Shang was the chosen one? In the corner, Yiguchen also put away the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade after opening the door of the tomb. His intuition told him that the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade was not just a key to opening the door. The funny thing was that Tuoba Shang actually thought that the door of the tomb was opened because of his bloodline. Ha, I told you. I am the successor of the 5 crown king, the successor of the ancestors. No one's bloodline is better than mine. Tuoba Shang looked up to the sky and laughed. As soon as the door of the tomb opened, everyone rushed in. Almost at the same time, the first elder, Wan Yanlan, who was sitting quietly outside the door, suddenly opened his eyes. His old face, which had always been expressionless, changed greatly. The tomb of the fiend gods has opened. The young king is about to be born. Wan Yanlan's old voice echoed around the door of the ancient god. The patriarchs of the surrounding tribes, Tuoba Outyen, Malambo, and the others were also shocked. The tomb of the fiend gods has really opened. Tuoba Shang is indeed the young king chosen by the heavens, a middle-aged man beside Wan Yanlan said loudly. He was the famous barbarian king of the 5 Elements Temple. He had been Tuoba Shang's guardian and had fought with Feng Manlu before. His strength was considered to be in the upper echelons of the divine dwelling stage. Enter. Wan Yanlan could no longer sit still. He led the many elders of the 5 Elements Temple and entered the door of the ancient god at almost the same time. The chiefs and elders of the various clans also followed closely behind and entered the door of the ancient god. This was a huge matter for the barbarian race. Chapter 571. Just as Wan Yanlan and the others entered the door of the ancient god. Inside the door of the ancient god, in the valley of 10,000 medicine, 100 Flower Child, who had been sitting cross-legged in the cave, suddenly opened her eyes. Her bright eyes flashed with extreme joy. The tomb of the fiend gods has opened. There's hope to get the reversal source fruit. 100 Flower Child almost impatiently rushed out of the valley of 10,000 medicine. But in the next moment, she felt many powerful auras pouring in from outside the door of the ancient god. Damn it, it's Wan Yanlan and those old bastards. 100 Flower Child's pretty little face scrunched up. The next moment, she completely concealed her aura and rushed to the depths of the tomb of the fiend gods at an extremely fast speed. On the other side, Wan Yanlan and the others, who had entered the door of the ancient god, also rushed to the tomb of the fiend gods without stopping for a moment. The door of the ancient god was neither big nor small. But with the cultivation of Wan Yanlan and the others, they arrived at the periphery of the tomb of the fiend gods in less than 15 minutes. Let's go in quickly. Tuoba Outyen wanted to enter directly. Stop. The demonic chi in the tomb of the fiend gods is stronger than the strong. If we enter, the powerful corrosive force will immediately demonize us. Wan Yanlan shouted when he saw that Tuoba Outyen was about to enter. The mysterious tomb was filled with demonic chi. The stronger one's cultivation, the easier it was to be affected and assimilated. So in the past, when the door of the ancient god opened, it was almost always the chosen and saintesses of the divine soul stage who entered. At this stage, they were not particularly weak and would not be easily affected and assimilated by the demonic chi. Of course, if they were directly exposed to the demonic chi, there was nothing they could do. Like Tuoba Leng, they would directly turn into an ape. Then how should we judge? Some of the patriarchs of the large clans asked. The opening of the tomb of the fiend gods was not a small matter. It would affect the future structure of the barbarian race. They naturally wanted to know the situation as soon as possible. Don't worry, let me open it. Wan Yanlan and the several divine dwelling stage elders in the 5 Elements Temple began to form hand seals. Rays of 5-colored divine light rose from the bodies of Wan Yanlan and the other elders. They vaguely resonated with some of the incomplete formations in the tomb of the fiend gods. Soon after, the 5-colored brilliance condensed into a screen of light in midair. The screen showed the situation inside the tomb of the gods and demons. The door to the mausoleum has indeed opened. Tuoba Shang used his own bloodline to sense it and created a resonance. That's why he was able to open the door. He is indeed the best inheritor of our ancestors' bloodline. Beside Wan Yanlan, a red-robed old man was so excited that his face turned red. He was the grand elder of the Tuoba family. Naturally, he was willing to see Tuoba Shang become the young lord. On the other side, the Mulan family's supreme elder, the cyan-gowned old man, had a serious expression on his face. He did not utter a single word. Although he also wanted to refute that statement, seeing was believing. That was indeed the situation on the screen of light. Outside the mausoleum of gods and devils, all the important figures of the barbarian race were staring at the screen of light. Inside the mausoleum, the door opened. Everyone looked at Tuoba Shang in a different light. Ye Guqin did not say a word after retrieving the 5 divine beasts' jade. Now that he had not obtained the sacred medicine, Ye Guqin did not want to reveal too much. Since Tuoba Shang had stepped forward to cover for him, it couldn't be any better. Enter. Tuoba Shang was in high spirits as if he had already become the young lord. Behind him, Tuoba Lai and the others also felt proud. On the contrary, the Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and the others did not look too good. Although they were also Tuoba Shang's subordinates, they were as ambitious as Lei Jiuyo. If possible, they all wanted to become the young lord. However, now that Tuoba Shang's bloodline could open the door of the mausoleum, their hopes were greatly extinguished. Both parties entered the mausoleum carefully. The space inside the mausoleum was quite spacious. It was like a beehive with many tomb passages. However, these tomb passages all led to the same destination. In the end, they all led to the deepest part of the mausoleum of gods and devils. Enter. The saints and saintesses rushed into the tomb passages. However, different tomb passages contained different things. There might be some opportunities and treasures, but there might also be many hidden dangers. There should be some opportunities in these tomb passages. You can search for them separately, but be careful. Remember to gather together in the end, Mu Lanyue said. Ye Guqin and the others nodded slightly. Shui Ruo and Dragon Girl would naturally follow Ye Guqin. What surprised Ye Guqin was that the wooden bell spirit also chose to follow him. On the other side, when Mu Lanxuan saw this, he frowned and said, Sister Yu, the wooden bell spirit dragon lady and the others actually chose to follow Dugu Wubai instead of us. Could it be that they think that Dugu Wubai knows the situation in the tomb better than our Mu Lanxuan? Let's not bother about them. It's their problem if they don't get the opportunities. Mu Lanfang rolled her eyes. She was very vengeful. Ye Guqin and the wooden bell spirit did not give her any face in the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. Brother Dugu, which tomb passage should we choose? Shui Ruo looked at the densely packed tomb passages and was confused. Ye Guqin pondered for a moment. In the next moment, the soul power in his perfect sea of consciousness suddenly spread out. Now, the range of his divine soul's perception was at least 1,000 feet, far exceeding that of an ordinary person. If there were opportunities and treasures, Ye Guqin should be able to feel some movement. Follow me. Ye Guqin said. Dragon Girl, Shui Ruo, and the wooden bell spirit followed Ye Guqin into a tomb passage. Inside the tomb passage, there was also demonic chi spreading, but it was thicker than outside. If this goes on, we won't be able to hold on for long. The wooden bell spirit and the others did not look too good. Ye Guqin's eyes flickered. He secretly operated the ancient god tactic. Then, totem power gushed out and turned into an air shield, enveloping the 4 of them. When the pitch-black demonic chi touched the air shield, it immediately made a sizzling sound and was unable to corrode it. Dragon Girl and the wooden bell spirit's eyes flickered, but they were smart and did not say anything. Not long after, they found an opportunity. It was a tomb chamber where some ancestors of the barbarian tribe had fallen. There is a totem spiritual seal. Dragon Girl and the other 2 exclaimed in surprise. Ye Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly. The so-called totem spirit seal was an extremely rare inheritance. It was formed by the ancestors of the barbarian tribe who had extremely high cultivation. They gathered their totem power into a spirit seal. Even if they died in the end, the spirit seal could still be passed down to their descendants. If a double crown king refined a totem spiritual seal, he would become a triple crown king. Of course, such totem spiritual seals were extremely rare and almost extinct in the Five Elements lands. Only in a place like the Tomb of the Gods and Devils could there be one. Yiguchin and the others found a total of 6 totem spiritual seals, which meant that they could refine the 6 supreme totems. Take it. Yiguchin shook his head slightly. He already had 5 progenitor totems, so these totem spiritual seals were of no use to him. Thank you. Dragon Girl knew Yiguchin very well, so she did not stand on ceremony. Her pretty face was full of joy. The wooden bell spirit also looked at Yiguchin gratefully. She had chosen the right person this time. If she had followed Mulanue and the others, even if they could find the totem spiritual seals, she would not have a share. Next, Yiguchin relied on his powerful spirit perception to find some opportunities, such as the mystical rune weapons left behind by the barbarian tribe's ancestors and some quasi-saint herbs. However, he did not find any saint herbs. Yiguchin's spirit perception faintly sensed that there was a powerful fluctuation hidden in the deepest part of the Tomb of the Gods and Devils. Go straight to the deepest part of the tomb, Yiguchin said. Dragon Girl and the others nodded. They had obtained many opportunities this time. Chapter 572. Just as Yiguchin and the others rushed out of the tomb, Mulanue and the Tuoba family's camp also rushed out. However, they were in a much worse state with injuries all over their bodies. On Mulanue's side, Murenxiu was missing. The rest, like Mulanfang and the others, were also covered in blood. Damn it! We didn't get the opportunity and Murenxiu is also dead. Mulanfang's face was extremely ugly. The tomb they chose was extremely dangerous and filled with demonic qi. Even Murenxiu died because of it. They didn't get any benefits and lost one of their people. However, the Tuoba family's camp was in a similar situation. Because the tomb's environment was complicated, their divine soul's range of perception was limited. Naturally, they couldn't avoid all the dangers. Mulanfang and Mulanxuan turned their attention to Yiguchin and the others again. Their gazes suddenly focused. Dragon Lady, Shui Rua, and the wooden bell spirit didn't look bad at all. Instead, they had smiles on their faces as if they had gained something big. The contrast was too obvious. What did you get? Mulanxuan asked coldly. He had previously questioned why the wooden bell spirit and the others would rather follow Yiguchin than the Mulanxuan family. Now, it seemed that the two sides had formed a stark contrast. Sorry, it has nothing to do with you. You should think about how to deal with the Tuoba family. Dragon Lady smiled coldly at Mulanxuan, but she also seemed to be a little proud. Previously, Mulanxuan and the others looked down on Yiguchin, thinking that they wouldn't gain anything by following Yiguchin. Now, it was clear who was better and who was worse. Mulanfang was also furious. If it weren't for the fact that they had a common enemy, Mulanfang would have already spoken up. Alright, shut up. We need to be more united now, Mulanue shouted. She also looked at Yiguchin in surprise and felt a little regretful. If they had followed Yiguchin, perhaps Murenxiu wouldn't have died. Almost everyone in the Mulanue and Tuoba families walked out of the tomb. At this moment, Yiguchin glanced around. This was an extremely large space. The ground was engraved with ancient patterns that seemed to form a ring. In the center of the ring, there were many stone coffins. Some of the stone coffins had already been opened and were in a mess, while others were still intact. Yiguchin sensed with his spirit that these stone coffins contained powerful energy fluctuations. There's a treasure inside the stone coffin. Not only Yiguchin, but the others also sensed it. Of course, there were people who couldn't help but make a move. They directly rushed to the side of the stone coffins and wanted to open the coffin lids. However, after the coffin lid was opened, a terrifying demonic aura spread out like a geyser. The expert from the Tuoba camp who opened the coffin lid was directly attacked by the demonic aura and fell to the ground in pain, wailing endlessly. However, as the demonic chi surged out, a ball of light rose into the air and floated in midair, as if it was untainted by mud. One could vaguely see a fruit within. It was black and white, and it gave off a mysterious feeling. Sacred medicine! Everyone exclaimed as they stared at the ball of light. Sacred medicine was extremely rare and almost extinct in the outside world. However, it still existed in the tomb of the gods and devils. Compared to the others, Yiguchin's eyes were filled with shock. That's the reverse origin fruit. Yiguchin took a deep breath. 100 Flowers' child needed him to obtain the reverse origin fruit, so she naturally told Yiguchin some things. Without a doubt, the black and white fruits were the reversed source fruit. Boom! No one could bear it anymore. The totem power on the surface of their bodies spread out to resist the billowing demonic aura. They wanted to obtain the reverse origin fruit. No matter what the effects of a sacred medicine were, its value was enough to tempt everyone. Even the many brute race experts who were watching from the periphery through the 5-colored light screen were burning with desire. If it weren't for the demonic chi blocking them, they would have barged in and snatched the sacred medicine. However, they didn't know that in a sunken hill in the distance, there was a beautiful figure. Her eyes were also burning with desire, and her face was slightly flushed with excitement. Yiguchin, you must get the reverse origin fruit for me. 100 Flowers' child said in her heart as she clenched her fists. Inside the great tomb, all the saints and saintesses made their moves and rushed towards the reversal origin fruit. However, at this moment, a furious roar was emitted from the coffin filled with surging demonic chi. Soon after, a black figure flashed out and grabbed the chosens that were the first to charge towards the reverse origin fruit. A hand covered in black hair ruthlessly slammed against the chosen's head. With a puff, red and white objects shot out. A powerful holy sun had directly fallen. Not good. It's the demonic ape. Some of the saints hurriedly stopped. Within the black fog, the black figure was revealed. His body was even more robust than the demonic ape's outside. His eyes were incomparably scarlet, and an extremely fiendish aura spread out, causing people to feel a chill. Divine Soul 9 Transformations, No, Life and Death Chamber. This demonic ape is comparable to a life and death chamber expert. A saint said with a pale face. As soon as these words came out, everyone stopped in their tracks. That was the life and death chamber. Among all the people present, there were less than 10 people who could fight against it. Even exchanging blows with it was difficult, let alone defeating it. Roar! The powerful demonic ape that was comparable to a life and death chamber expert charged toward them. Yiguchin, Tuoba Shang, and the others' eyes flashed. They weren't too afraid of the life and death chamber. In addition, Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and the others were also qualified to exchange blows with the life and death chamber expert. Kill! At this moment, Tuoba Shang, Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and the others seemed to have a tacit understanding as they besieged the demonic ape. Yiguchin's eyes flashed, and his feet flashed as he rushed toward the reverse origin fruit. You're courting death. Tuoba Shang snorted coldly and punched out. An intense scarlet light shot out. It was the fire demon tyrant fist. Yiguchin sneered. At this point, he didn't need to hide his strength. He directly punched out and neutralized Tuoba Shang's move. Then, he used wave-like subtle steps and arrived beside the reverse origin fruit, keeping it with one hand. Duguwubai, do you want to die so much? Tuoba Shang and the others' eyes were scarlet. The demonic ape also turned around and looked at Yiguchin with a ferocious expression. At this moment, Yiguchin became the target of everyone. Just as Yiguchin and Tuoba Shang were confronting each other, the Saint Sons of Heaven and Earth Saint Sons were also stunned. The other saints and saintesses were also unwilling to give up. They discovered that there were still a few stone coffins here. They didn't care and directly opened them. Demonic chi surged out from within. Inside each stone coffin was a demonic ape comparable to a life and death chamber realm expert. However, the opportunities were also enough to make people jealous. Light flickered in one of the stone coffins, and a saint herb appeared. This saint herb was shaped like a ginseng, and a strong medicinal fragrance vaguely formed a mini 7-colored dragon that coiled around the ginseng. Could that be the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng? Rumor has it that it's a healing saint herb that can heal the dead and bring bones back to life. Mulanua's beautiful eyes widened, filled with disbelief. Of course, there was also a fiery gaze. Having the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng was like having an extra life. Who wouldn't be tempted? Seeing this, Yi Guqin's eyes flickered. I want this 7-colored jade dragon ginseng. Whoever stops me will die. His words were like the judgment of the god of death. It was incomparably domineering and intimidating. Chapter 573. Anyone who tried to stop him would die. All the holy princes and holy virgins were slightly stunned when they heard this. They couldn't understand what qualifications a Triple Crown champion had to say such words. One must know that Tuoba Shang, the Quadruple Crown King, was present. Even if Tuoba Shang wasn't present, there was no lack of Triple Crown champions among the saints and saintesses. Not to mention Tuoba Shang's camp, even some people from Mulan's camp frowned. However, the current situation didn't give them much time to think. The few life and death threshold demonized apes had long been enraged and started attacking. Especially one of the demonized apes. When it saw Yi Guqin take the reversal origin fruit, it roared at Yi Guqin with scarlet eyes. Tuoba Shang's eyes flickered. Don't worry about him for now. He's just a Triple Crown champion. How can he deal with life and death threshold? Let's go fight for the other opportunities first. As Tuoba Shang's words fell, the others also rushed toward the other treasures. Humph, just one demonized ape is enough to make you suffer. You want to fight with me for the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng? On the other side, Mulan Fang sneered. She had always held a grudge against Yi Guqin. Now that she saw Yi Guqin being entangled by the demonic ape, she naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Immediately, many people joined the ranks of the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng. Even Mo Yi, Dragon Lady, and the others joined in. Courting death. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold. The 7-colored jade dragon ginseng was Su Jianxu's only hope of recovery. How could he give it up? No one could stop him. Roar. With a roar, the life and death threshold demonized ape stretched out its sharp black claws and clawed at Yi Guqin's head. Get lost. Yi Guqin raised his brows and his face froze. He directly activated the power of the 5 primogenitor totems in his body and the ancient god art. He punched at the demonized ape. When the two collided, a powerful force came from Yi Guqin's fist. Even with Yi Guqin's powerful physique, he was still forced to take a few steps back. However, in the eyes of others, this scene was somewhat shocking. That Dugu Wubai is actually able to contend with existences at the level of life and death chamber. Some saints and saintesses caught a glimpse of this from the corner of their eyes and were all astonished. Even the Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Shaotian, and the others were surprised. However, they were currently busy fighting for the opportunity and did not have the time to think that Yi Guqin was actually hiding his strength. Roar! The demonized ape attacked again. Black devil chi surged from its body, and its claws turned into fists. It was as if a single punch could shatter a mountain. Yi Guqin circulated the ancient god art in his body, and with the support of the 5 primogenitor totems, his strength also rose to a powerful level. This demonized ape only has a physical body comparable to a life and death threshold. It doesn't have a sea of consciousness, so it can't be considered a true life and death threshold. Yi Guqin repeatedly punched out, colliding with the demonized ape. Shocking chi waves burst out. Just a physical body comparable to a life and death threshold was not enough to scare Yi Guqin. This was because his physical body was not inferior to a life and death threshold expert. However, while Yiguchen was fighting with the demonized ape, on the other side, a great battle had already begun around the seven-colored jade dragon ginseng and other supreme treasures. Moreover, the other demonized apes also joined the battle, fighting with Tuoba Shang, Mulanue, and the others. The scene could be described as incomparably chaotic. Things might change if I delay. I must end this quickly. Yiguchen's eyes flashed as he looked at the demonized ape in front of him. With a flip of his wrist, the blood hell sword landed in his hand. Layers of bloody light also appeared on his body, turning into a sinister blood armor. With the Saint Elixir in front of him, Yiguchen did not plan to hide his identity anymore. He directly revealed his identity as Five Crown King. Five Great Sword Intense, go! With a cold shout, the blood hell sword in Yiguchen's hand swept out. Five Great Sword Intense burst out at the same time, connecting with each other. Although they had yet to take shape, there was a hint of the five elements sword intense. At the same time, Yiguchen added the power of the five primogenitor totems and the ancient god power. All kinds of power burst out in an instant. A five-colored sword light flashed, directly sweeping towards the demonized ape. With one slash, blood splattered. That demonized ape was neatly divided into 5 parts, and it couldn't be any more dead. A demonized ape whose body was comparable to the life and death threshold fell just like that. Silence, a deathly silence. Whether it was the saints and saintesses in the great tomb or the barbarian race experts watching through the 5-colored light screen, their gazes and expressions froze at this moment. The figure in the blood armor and holding the blood sword was imprinted in everyone's eyes, causing their expressions to change from frozen to shocked, then from shocked to horrified. Five Crown King, a saint stammered, his voice incomparably dry, his eyes bulging as he exclaimed in shock. What? Everyone was shocked, incomparable surprise and astonishment. Mulanue's mind buzzed, countless voices reverberating in her mind, finally turning into the 3 words Five Crown King. The person she thought about day and night, the person she wanted to rope in, she never thought that he would be right under her nose. Moreover, he had been ignored by her many times. Mulanfang and Mulanxuan's faces turned pale, as if they had seen a ghost. No, impossible, how could the Five Crown King be him? Mulanfang shook her head, her delicate body trembling like a sieve. If she knew Yiguchen was the Five Crown King, Mulanfang would never have dared to provoke him. Thinking of her many provocations, and then thinking of Yiguchen's words, "Your life is my charity." Mulanfang felt a chill surge in her heart, as if she had taken a trip to the gates of hell. The lion and tiger saints' expressions changed drastically, thinking of how they had targeted Yiguchen before, they were incomparably nervous. The dragoness reaction was the calmest, but Shui Ruo's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. The person she was curious about, the Five Crown King, was actually Dugu Wubai. Shui Ruo felt like her brain was about to be fried, but more than that, she was glad that she had not underestimated Yiguchen like Imo Tao. The wooden bell spirit was also shocked by Yiguchen's identity, but there was a strange glow in her green eyes. Her intuition was right. Outside the God-fiend tomb, Yiguchen's identity caused an uproar. Even Wan Yanlan, a top master of the barbarian tribe who was always calm and collected, showed a look of astonishment. Lord Tian Barbarian and the other experts of the 5 Elements Temple were also shocked. Mulambua's expression froze, then he shook his head and laughed. What a great Five Crown King, he actually managed to fool everyone. On the other hand, the faces of the Tuoba family were extremely ugly, especially Tuoba Outyen. They were the most unwilling to see the Five Crown King, especially when he had appeared right under the nose of the 5 Elements Temple. One could imagine that Wan Yanlan had many thoughts in his mind. As for the Water Tribe, needless to say, the tribe leader of the Water Tribe and the others were shocked, as Mo Tao was also among the crowd. However, at this moment, he was paralyzed on the ground, trembling all over. He could not imagine that the ordinary wandering barbarian whom he had underestimated was actually the invincible Five Crown King who had defeated Tuoba Shang. At this moment, everyone thought of this. Outside the Five Elements Temple, when they heard that Yiguchen wanted to deal with Tuoba Shang alone, they had mocked him. Now, when the identity of the Five-Crowned King was revealed, they felt a burning sensation on their faces, as if they had been slapped 10 times with great force. If the Five-Crowned King was not qualified to deal with Tuoba Shang, dare I ask, who else is qualified? Chapter 574. Yiguchen's identity as Five-Crowned King had shocked everyone. The top powers of the barbarian tribe outside the Tomb of the Gods and Devils could not hide their shock. Even the elders of the Five-Element Temple could not remain calm. Five-Crowned King was the successor that the Five-Element Temple had been searching for. They had previously identified Tuoba Shang and had been trying their best to nurture him. They had even let the Sky Barbarian King be Tuoba Shang's guardian. This showed how much importance they placed on Tuoba Shang. However, now that the successor of Five-Crowned King had appeared, some of the elders of the Five-Element Temple began to have second thoughts. The Grand Elder of the Tuoba family had a gloomy expression. Now that the real Five-Crowned King had appeared, Tuoba Shang was no match for him. On the other hand, the Great Elder of the Mulan family rejoiced in Tuoba Shang's misfortune because Mulan Yu herself was no match for Tuoba Shang. In that case, the successor of Five-Crowned King was able to suppress Tuoba Shang. Yiguchen's identity as Five-Crowned King had shocked everyone in the Great Tomb. Those who had mocked and ridiculed Yiguchen were trembling slightly. Their hearts were filled with anxiety. Feng Xiaotian, the Golden Sun Saint's son, and the others stared at Yiguchen. I'm afraid that Lei Jiuyo has been killed by him. The Golden Sun Saint's son said after taking a deep breath. He had not believed Yiguchen and had thought that Yiguchen was boasting. Now that the identity of Five-Crowned King had been exposed, everyone thought that Lei Jiuyo had been killed by Yiguchen. Of course, Tuoba Shang was naturally the one with the most turbulent emotions. Tuoba Shang's expression was incomparably cold and fierce. He was like a wild wolf that was about to devour its prey. His gaze was almost fixed on Yiguchen. Five-Crowned King. You are Five-Crowned King and you have been hiding under our noses. Tuoba Shang's tone was as cold as ice. Losing to Yiguchen in the ancient desolate forbidden zone was a humiliation that Tuoba Shang would never be able to erase. Even their Tuoba family's scheme, which relied on the heavenly barbarian slaughtering spiritual array, was destroyed by Yiguchen. It was precisely for the sake of washing away this humiliation that Tuoba Shang risked his life to enter the life and death cave to temper himself. He wanted to transform himself again and then personally defeat Five-Crowned King. Now that his enemy was right in front of him, Tuoba Shang's anger was unimaginable. Five-Crowned King, I entered the life and death cave and experienced countless dangers to train so that I could step on you personally one day. I didn't expect that you would actually appear. Tuoba Shang's heart was burning with the desire to take revenge. He couldn't wait to kill Yiguchen immediately. Get out of my way. However, Yiguchen coldly shouted and ignored Tuoba Shang. He only wanted to obtain the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng. How dare you ignore me? Tuoba camp, listen up. Fight for the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng. Don't let Five-Crowned King get it. Tuoba Shang's eyes were burning with rage. He didn't expect that Yiguchen wouldn't even look at him. Instead, he only wanted to obtain the 7-colored jade dragon ginseng. This was a humiliation to him. Since you want it, I won't let you get it. Tuoba Shang's face was cold. Although the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others were wary of Yiguchen's strength, their current strength was not what it used to be. In addition, the demonized ape was disrupting the situation. Yiguchen's 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. He was a little overwhelmed. Let's attack too. Mulan Yue's eyes flashed as she shouted. Since Five-Crowned King was in their camp, Mulan Yue naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch Yiguchen be besieged. However, other than the Dragon Girl, Shui Ruo, and the Wooden Bell Spirit, the others, such as Mulan Xuan and Mulan Fang, didn't help. Instead, they wanted to obtain other opportunities. On the other hand, the lion and tiger saints followed behind Mulan and attacked together. Boom! 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 The whole scene became even more chaotic. The demonized ape's demonic chi, totem power, and various moves danced in the sky like dazzling fireworks. However, they also carried extreme destructive power. In the midst of this chaos, the white lion saint and black tiger saint looked at each other and a fierce light flashed in their eyes. They directly launched a sneak attack on Mulan and the dragon girl. Oh no! No matter how fast Mulan and the dragon girl reacted, they barely had time to use their totem power to support a protective shield. How could they resist the lion and tiger saint's attacks? Puff! Two sounds of vomiting blood rang out. Mulan and the dragon girl were sent flying back at the same time. They were severely injured. Lion and tiger saints, you! Mulan was so angry that she almost broke her silver teeth. She didn't expect the lion and tiger saints, whom she relied on the most, to launch a sneak attack on them. We have already joined the Tuoba family's camp. Mulan, even if Five Crown King is on your side, what can you do? The white lion saint said coldly. In fact, the Tuoba family had already secretly contacted the barbarians and wanted to rope them in. The lion and tiger saints had always been hesitant. However, as Yiguchen's identity as Five Crown King was exposed, they also knew that they had formed a grudge with Yiguchen. Even if they stood on the Mulan side, they would probably be targeted in the future. In that case, they might as well completely side with the Tuoba family and eliminate Yiguchen, Mulan, and the others together. With the betrayal of the lion and tiger saints, the whole situation was completely hopeless for the Mulan camp. Mulanfang and Mulanxuan were already dumbfounded. Ha! The seven-colored jade dragon ginseng is ours. The Golden Sun Saint Sun, Feng Xiaotian, and the others directly rushed toward the seven-colored jade dragon ginseng. Although there were demonic apes blocking the way, these demonic apes only had physical bodies that had reached the hidden latch of life and death. They did not have a sea of consciousness, so they did not pose much of a threat to the Golden Sun Saint Sun and the others. Seeing this, Yiguchen's aura burst out again. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and Ting snake, the five primogenitor spirits directly rushed out of Yiguchen's body and appeared in the void. In an instant, a terrifying five elements power swept out in all directions. The saints and saintesses who wanted to get close to the seven-colored jade dragon ginseng were all sent flying. Not only that, but even the few demonized apes were forced to retreat from the shock. The seven-colored jade dragon ginseng was almost the only hope to save Su Jianshi. Yiguchen had to get it even if he had to risk his life. The moment everyone was pushed back, Yiguchen used wave-like subtle steps and flashed to the side of the seven-colored jade dragon ginseng. He grabbed it with one hand and put it into his bag. I finally got it. Yiguchen breathed a sigh of relief. He hid his identity, entered the land of five elements, and thought of ways to sneak into the five elements temple and the door of the ancient gods. Wasn't it all for the sake of obtaining the sacred herb? Now that he finally got it, although Yiguchen breathed a sigh of relief, he knew that things weren't as simple as they seemed. As expected, after he obtained the sacred herb, Tuoba Shang and the others all stared at him. On the other side, Mulanfang, Mulanxuan, and the others' eyes flickered with a dark light. This was because Yiguchen had two sacred herbs on him, the reversal origin fruit and the seven-colored jade dragon ginseng. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have the strength to obtain two sacred herbs. In an instant, Yiguchen became the target of public criticism and was in a dangerous situation. Chapter 575. It could be said that Yiguchen was surrounded by enemies. His only allies, Mulan and the Dragon Lady, were also severely injured and could not even protect themselves. Shui Rua was slightly weaker and could not help much for the time being. Only the wooden bell spirit was left. Even if it wanted to, it could only block the attack of one saint. There were more than 10 people in Tuoba's camp, including experts like the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotan, and Mo Yi. Mu Lanfang and the others in Mulan's camp would not take action. They even had other plans. In short, Yi Guqin was now in a very dangerous situation. However, before Tuoba Shang and the others could take action, the demonized apes roared and charged at Yi Guqin. After all, Yi Guqin had killed a demonized ape with his own hands. Now that he had taken 2 sacred herbs, he naturally became the demonized ape's target. The 3 demonized apes charged toward Yi Guqin with demonic qi billowing around their bodies. Yi Guqin was wearing the heavenly demon general armor and holding the blood hell sword. His strength had increased by several times. He activated the ancient god tactic again. Ancient light runes spread out from his body and a faintly discernible star appeared on his forehead. The moment Yi Guqin activated the ancient god body, vaguely, a weak ancient voice seemed to be heard in his sea of consciousness. My successor, return. This weak voice transmission caused Yi Guqin's eyes to shine with a strange light, but he didn't show it. What he needed to do now was to deal with the 3 demonized apes. After Yi Guqin transformed into the ancient god form, the 3 demonized apes seemed to have encountered their mortal enemies. They let out shrill cries as if they had encountered a mortal enemy. Boom! 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 While Yi Guqin was surrounded by the 3 demonized apes, the other saints and saintesses did not take action. If they stepped forward now, they would undoubtedly be attacked by the demonized apes. At that time, they would help Yi Guqin share the pressure. Therefore, the eyes of Tuoba Shang and the others flickered as they went to fight for other opportunities. As for Yi Guqin, when the 3 demonized apes depleted his strength, Tuoba Shang and the others would naturally think of a way to deal with him. Seeing Yi Guqin being surrounded by the 3 demonized apes, the expressions of Wan Yanlan and the other elders turned somewhat grave. Yi Guqin's appearance had undoubtedly disrupted their plans. However, what Wan Yanlan needed was only a young king. If Yi Guqin could survive and defeat Tuoba Shang, then Wan Yanlan could pass the position of young lord to Yi Guqin. Of course, they still didn't know that Yi Guqin wasn't a barbarian. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so indifferent. In the great tomb, Yi Guqin held the blood prison sword in his hand as sword qi surged. At the same time, the 5 primogenitors' spirits suppressed the demonized apes. The bodies of these demonic apes were comparable to the hidden gates of life and death. With 3 of them attacking at the same time, only Tuoba Shang could hold on for a while. Even the Golden Sun Saint's son and the others would find it difficult to survive. However, Yi Guqin was different. His ancient god power seemed to be able to restrain the demonized apes. In addition, he had the defense of the heavenly demon general armor, the attack of the blood prison sword, and the strength of the peak 9 changes of the divine soul. The current Yi Guqin was much stronger than before. Boom! After another attack, Yi Guqin's sword split a demonized ape in half. The 5 primogenitors' spirits attacked the other 2 demonized apes at the same time. The dragon lady and the others weren't in a good situation. Shi, Mu Lanyue, Shui Rua, and Mu Zhongling gathered together and were besieged by the Lion Tiger Saints and the Triple Crown Kings of the Tuoba family. As for Mu Lanyue and Mu Lanchuan, they had already shrunk to the side. They couldn't even protect themselves, let alone help Mu Lanyue and the others. In just a short while, Tuoba Shang, the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others had already snatched a few opportunities. At this time, Yi Guqin had also killed the remaining 2 demonized apes. However, Yi Guqin had also suffered some injuries. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. After all, their bodies were comparable to the hidden gates of life and death. Yi Guqin couldn't kill them without suffering any injuries. 5 Crown King is just a title. As long as I kill you, I'll naturally inherit the title of 5 Crown King and even the title of Young King. Tuoba Shang stared at Yi Guqin. Kill. There was no room for negotiation. The people of the Tuoba family rushed towards Yi Guqin. As for the heavily injured dragon maiden and the others, they were stopped by the saints. It was impossible for them to save Yi Guqin. Tuoba Shang didn't attack directly. Instead, he sneered as he watched Yiguchen being besieged. If Yiguchen couldn't even survive this round, then he wasn't qualified to be his opponent. You're courting death. Yiguchen was expressionless and cold. These two sacred herbs were items that he had to obtain. If anyone tried to stop him, he wouldn't show any mercy. Boom! The 5 primogenitor totems' power spread out and suppressed the attacks of the Golden Sun Saint and the others. Go, he's alone. He can't stop us. The White Lion Saint roared. His supreme totem, the Golden Eye White Lion, was summoned. The Black Tiger Saint also summoned his heavenly demonic tiger. When the two of them joined forces, the power of their attacks multiplied. The Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the other Triple Crown Kings also attacked. Mu Lanyue's face turned pale at the sight of this. Outside the Tomb of the Gods and Demons, some of the barbarian tribe experts looked at this ridiculous scene with disdain. Even the Sky Barbarian Lord said coldly, "We barbarian tribe worship the brave. Since when did we use such a method? 5 Crown King is in trouble now." Some of the barbarian tribe experts shook their heads. Tuoba Outyen had a cold smile on his face. The Grand Elder of the Tuoba family was also sneering. It seemed that 5 Crown King was going to fall in the Tomb of the Gods and Demons before he could rise to power. Great Elder, that's 5 Crown King. How can he fall like this? The Grand Elder of the Mulan family said. It was not that he cared about Yiguchen's life, but if Yiguchen died, no one would be able to fight against Tuoba Shang. This is also a test for him. If 5 Crown King can really defeat everyone and even defeat Tuoba Shang, then it's not a bad idea to pass the position of young lord to him, Wan Yanlan said calmly. A great battle began in the Tomb of the Gods and Demons. Yiguchen alone blocked many of the barbarian tribe saints and saintesses. Sky Lion Divine Fist. Tiger Roar Flash. Saint Sun Technique. Wind Ripping Hand. The Lion Tiger Saints, the Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and many others all attacked at the same time. Come on, what's there to be afraid of? Yiguchen laughed heartily. He no longer hid anything. If he held back, he might really be in danger. As for the consequences of his identity being exposed, Yiguchen naturally had a plan. 100 Flower Child was indeed a layer of protection, but Yiguchen had another layer of protection. Therefore, Yiguchen decided not to hide anything. Boom! A layer of blood-colored sword intent spread out from Yiguchen's body. The Azura Blood Sea was activated. Boom! Another type of sword intent rushed out, causing the surrounding void to tremble. An illusory primordial divine mountain appeared. The Gravity Sword domain was activated. God-slaying sword technique, Permitha. Yiguchen's true chi and totem power were activated. 2 illusory sword Dao domains were activated. The 5 primogenitor totems roared in the sky. At this moment, the Sword Sect and 5 Crown King had completely merged. The power of the two systems had merged into one. The Sword Dao domain swept out in all directions. The primogenitor totem suppressed heaven and earth. In an instant, everyone's expression changed inside and outside the Tomb of the Gods and Demons. An indescribable look of astonishment appeared on everyone's faces. Chapter 576. When Yiguchen revealed his identity as 5 Crown King, everyone inside and outside the Tomb of the Gods and Devils was shocked, but they were still able to accept it. After all, no matter what, Dugu Wubai was still a barbarian. Perhaps he had obtained the inheritance of 5 Crown King by chance. But now, when Yiguchen revealed his genuine chi and sword principle cultivation, everyone's eyes popped out. A look of disbelief appeared on their faces. How could they not see that the sword move was not a barbarian's move at all? Moreover, Yiguchen did not even hide his genuine chi. Therefore, his identity was exposed almost immediately. This sword intent. You are Yiguchen from the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Even Tuoba Shang could not hide the shock on his face. Even with his calm and cold personality, he had such an expression. One could see how shocked he was. Yiguchin's name as Sword Master was also known in the barbarian tribe. His Shura sword intent was the most well-known. Therefore, when Yiguchin released the Shura sword intent, the saints and saintesses immediately realized that the true identity of Five Crown King was a sword master. Shock, dumbfounded, disbelief, the Gold Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, the Lion Tiger Saints, and the others were all stunned. They felt that it was extremely absurd. Rumble. As their moves collided, Yiguchin used the power of the two sword doctrine domains, the power of the five-colored totem, and the god-slaying sword technique to block the moves of the Golden Sun Saint's son and the others. Of course, Yiguchin also retreated a dozen steps and groaned in his chest. No matter how strong his cultivation was now, he had not reached the life and death threshold. It was still difficult for him to block the attacks of so many people by himself. However, if it were anyone else, they would have died under such a joint attack. They would not have been able to withstand it. After the clash of moves, the entire great tomb fell into a strange silence. Mulan also stared at Yiguchin in disbelief. When Yiguchin revealed his identity as Five Crown King, she was shocked, but she was even more delighted. But now, her joy had turned into heaviness. The identity of Five Crown King would not matter to anyone as long as they were a berserker. They would still be acknowledged by Five Element Temple. However, if it fell into the hands of an outsider, the nature of the situation would be different. The Five Elements Temple would not appreciate or nurture Yiguchin. They would only feel anger, humiliation, and the determination to destroy Yiguchin. How is this possible, why? Mulan laughed bitterly. It was obvious that once Yiguchin's true identity was exposed, it would mean that their Mulan clan would be completely defeated. Even if Yiguchin defeated Tuoba Shang, the Five-Element Divine Temple would not acknowledge Yiguchin's identity. Instead, they would kill Yiguchin and even implicate the Mulan clan. Because it was Mulan who brought Yiguchin into the door of the ancient god. And the door of the ancient god was the Berserker clan's holy land. No outsider had ever stepped into it. As for Hundred Flower Child, she hid very well, so she had never been discovered. Mulan face was as pale as paper. She turned to the indifferent dragoness and asked, "You already knew?" Dragoness was silent for a moment. She did not hide anything and nodded. "Do you know that my Mulan clan might fall into the abyss because of your deceit?" Mulan gritted her teeth. Although she hated Dragoness, it was too late now. "I'm sorry, Yiguchin is my savior and has helped me a lot. I can't not help him." Dragoness's tone was apologetic. Dragoness knew that now that Yiguchin's identity was exposed, she would not be able to escape the blame. Once she left the door of the ancient god, she would probably be punished by the Five-Element Temple. Shui Ruo was also stunned. Yiguchin's identity changed one after another, making her unable to regain her senses. But the little girl's expression was firm. No matter what, it was Big Brother Dugu who took care of Shui Ruo. That's why Shui Ruo is here today. Even if Big Brother Dugu isn't from the Berserker clan, Shui Ruo will not go against him. Compared to Dragoness and the others, Mulan Fang, Mulan Xuan, and the others were overjoyed. Previously, they were worried that Yiguchin would really become the young king and take revenge on them. But now, the one whose life was in danger was Yiguchin. In short, when Yiguchin's identity was exposed, his situation was equivalent to going from heaven to hell. A mere outsider actually obtained the inheritance of the Five Crown King. This is a taboo of the Berserker clan. Mulan, do you still want to stand on the same side as Yiguchin? Tuoba Shang questioned. Mulan expression changed as she clenched her jade-like hands. Mulan Fang and Mulan Xuan hurriedly said, "Of course not. I feel that our two clans should temporarily stop fighting and deal with Yiguchin together. He stole our Berserker clan's inheritance. This is unforgivable." Mulan Fang's clamor was the most intense. She couldn't wait to kill Yiguchin. Yi Guqin's gaze was incomparably cold as he stared at Mulanfang. He had let Mulanfang off many times for the sake of Mulangyue and Mulanbua. It seemed that he had indeed made a mistake. Some people should be killed. There was no need to leave any leeway. All right, let's temporarily put aside our grudges and deal with Yi Guqin together. Tuoba Shang nodded slightly. Now that Yi Guqin was the sword master and the five-crown king, he had two identities and two cultivation powers. Tuoba Shang knew that even after his transformation, it wouldn't be easy for him to defeat Yi Guqin. Since that was the case, he might as well let the others exhaust him first. If Yi Guqin could survive, then he would be qualified to fight with him. Let's go. Mulanfang, Mulanxuan, and the others also joined in the encirclement. Mulangyue's expression was conflicted, but she didn't make a move. The dragoness was heavily injured. She gritted her teeth and wanted to help Yi Guqin, but she was powerless. The wooden bell spirit was hesitant. Yi Guqin was only the five-crown king, so she naturally had to be on good terms with him. But now, Yi Guqin was still the sword master. This caused the wooden bell spirit to be conflicted. She originally wanted to help Yi Guqin, but now she could only not make a move against him. Seeing so many people surround him again, Yi Guqin's eyes didn't have the slightest bit of fear. There was only endless battle intent. Come, all of you, come. Today, I, Yi Guqin, will open the path with blood and kill with my sword. Whoever stands in my way will die. Yi Guqin raised his head and roared. The five primogenitor spirits roared endlessly. Two illusory sword domains covered the area. Yi Guqin took one domain each. It was as if he had been possessed. He had the majestic aura of one man holding the pass against 10,000. Kill. There was no hesitation, no superfluous words. Only by killing to the point of terror could one make others fearful. Just as the bloody battle began inside the great tomb, the atmosphere outside the tomb of the fiend gods was so heavy that it was suffocating. Chapter 577. First Elder Wan Yanlan's face was frozen like an ice abyss. His withered hand that held the walking stick trembled slightly. Humiliation. Extreme humiliation. The most respected inheritance of the barbarian race, Five-Crown King, had fallen into the hands of an outsider. How could Wan Yanlan not be angry and humiliated? Moreover, Wan Yanlan had once followed the legendary Five-Crown King. He had great respect for Five-Crown King and worshipped him as if he was a god. Therefore, Wan Yanlan had already decided that if Five-Crown King's successor could withstand the pressure and defeat Tuoba Shang, he would support Five-Crown King and become the barbarian race's young king. As for the Five Elements Temple, it would be Quintuple Crown King's strongest backing. However, now that Yi Guqin's identity as an outsider had been exposed, all of these possibilities were gone. This was because the Five Elements Temple would never allow an outsider to obtain Five-Crown King's inheritance and become the barbarian race's young king. Humiliation. Wan Yanlan's body trembled. A powerful aura swept out and changed the color of the sky and earth outside the tomb of the gods and devils. Sand and stones flew and the earth shook. As the first elder of the Five Elements Temple, Wan Yanlan was extremely powerful. Even the Heaven Barbarian King was no match for Wan Yanlan. If Wan Yanlan wasn't at the end of his life and couldn't use his full strength, he alone would be equivalent to 4 or 5 divine dwelling experts. It was because of this strength that Wan Yanlan could become the pillar of the barbarian race in the Five Elements Temple. Everyone present fell silent. They knew that the first elder was truly enraged. On the Tuoba family's side, although Tuoba Outyen and the others looked solemn, their eyes were filled with smiles. Originally, they thought that Five-Crown King's appearance would threaten Tuoba Shang's position. However, it seemed that they didn't need to worry about this at all. The Grand Elder of the Tuoba family was also overjoyed. On the other hand, the Grand Elder of the Mulan family and Mulan Bo's faces were ugly. The Mulan family can't escape the blame for the outsider entering the door of the ancient god. When the door of the ancient god ends, the Mulan family will be judged. Wan Yanlan said expressionlessly. Mirambo's body trembled as he nodded heavily. And this brat, I heard that he's Yiguchen from the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest, right? When he comes out from the gate of the ancient gods, tie him to the sacrificial pillar in my 5 elements divine temple and strip him of his primogenitor totem. After that, he will die from the pain of being burned by the raging flames. Wan Yanlan's voice was cold. Some of the barbarian tribe members trembled slightly when they heard this. The pain of having one's totem stripped away was comparable to having one's heart and lungs dug out. Not to mention that one had to be burned to death. That was simply miserable to the extreme. In the water tribe, Mo Tao was grinning from ear to ear. From the previous despair and unwillingness to accept this, he was now beaming with joy. What a twist in life. Dugu Wubai, no, Yiguchen, so what if you're powerful? You're still going to die in the end. With the great elder's decision, do you think you can escape? Mo Tao laughed happily. Even further away, 100 Flowers' child, who was hiding in the dark, had a dark expression on her face. Alas, we've been exposed. It's difficult to take this boy out. 100 Flowers' child sighed. It was extremely difficult to take Yiguchen away under the noses of Wan Yanlan, Heaven Barbarian King, and other experts from the 5 Elements Temple, as well as many barbarian tribe chiefs. 100 Flowers' child would probably have to risk her life to have a chance of winning. However, in order to reverse the origin fruit, 100 Flowers' child was still willing to take the risk. Compared to death, 100 Flowers' child was more afraid of being trapped in this young body for the rest of her life. That would be a fate worse than death. Outside the tomb of the gods and devils, at the same time that Wan Yanlan was passing the judgment on Yiguchen. Inside the tomb, strong waves of energy swept out in all directions. Totem power and genuine qi burst out with a loud bang. Fortunately, Yiguchen had the 5 primogenitor totems, which could restrain the barbarian tribe. When the 5 primogenitor totems released their primogenitor totems, the holy sons and holy daughters besieging him were weakened by at least 30 to 40% of their totem power. In addition to the burden imposed by the gravity sword realm, their strength was reduced by at least half, or even 60 to 70%. Only in this way could Yiguchen compete with the barbarian tribe experts. Great Void Sword Wave. Yiguchen held the Blood Hell sword in his hand, and the blade resonated with the void. Waves of transparent sword waves spread out in all directions. Some of the weaker barbarian tribe holy sons were directly forced back and spat out blood. However, Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the Lion and Tiger Saints withstood the pressure of the sword wave and attacked Yiguchen again. Boom! 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 The continuous collisions caused ripples to burst out. Golden Sun Saint and the others all besieged Yiguchen. Yiguchen gradually spat out blood from the corner of his mouth, and he groaned in pain. Of course, some of the weaker barbarian tribe holy sons were directly penetrated by Yiguchen's sword and killed. Ancient Gods Tactics. Yiguchen activated the Ancient Gods Tactics again. His body grew taller, and the divine power in his body surged. He stabbed out with his sword, which seemed to contain the power of the ancient god, and caused the void to emit a shrill sound. Puchi. The sword directly penetrated the skull of a barbarian tribe holy son, and red and white matter splattered. Yiguchen, you can't escape today. Wind Dragon Technique. Feng Xiaotian activated his wind elemental totem, and a majestic wind elemental totem power turned into a wind dragon, which attacked Yiguchen. The Lion and Tiger Saints saw this and joined forces to attack. Lion and Tiger Demon Fist. The two punched out at the same time, and their moves seemed to resonate. 2 light lions and black tigers, formed completely by totem power, rushed toward Yiguchen. Holy Light Illumination. Golden Sun Saint also prepared to use his move. However, at this moment, there was a Puchi. A pitch-black sword pierced through Golden Sun Saint's chest, stained with blood. Golden Sun Saint's face froze. He turned his head in disbelief and saw the silent barbarian youth looking at him coldly. "Moye, you." Golden Sun Saint spat out blood as he stared at the person in front of him. It was the wandering barbarian who had been recruited by the Tuoba family. This scene was out of everyone's expectations. Tuoba Shang was also shocked. Only Yiguchen looked at Moye with a faint smile, as if he was not surprised. Moye's body shook, and all his disguises were removed. The person who appeared in front of everyone was a black-clothed young man with cold facial features. It was Su Moyan. "It's you." Golden Sun Saint's eyes froze. In the forbidden zone of the ancient Baron, Su Moyan had helped in the valley and saved the people of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Therefore, Feng Xiaotian, Golden Sun Saint, and the others all knew Su Moyan. They did not expect that other than Yiguchen, there would be an outsider who sneaked into the door of the ancient god. This was simply out of everyone's expectations. Su Moyan's expression was cold. His majestic genuine qi gushed out of his body and poured into Mo Kuang. Then, the sword vibrated, and Golden Sun Saint's entire body exploded into blood. A heavyweight Triple Crown champion had fallen just like that. Some of the saints and saintesses present were terrified. Chapter 578. Yiguchen alone was powerful enough to suppress them all. Even if they joined forces, it would still be difficult to suppress him. Now, Su Moyan had appeared and killed the Golden Sun Saint's son with a sneak attack. The Golden Sun Saint's son died with grievance. Originally, with his strength, even if he faced Su Moyan, he would not die in one move. But Su Moyan hid his strength very well. Even when Yiguchen was besieged, he did not make a move. Now, with a thunderous attack, it was impossible to guard against, so he successfully killed one of them. Su Moyan moved and directly rushed to Yiguchen's side. In fact, he had been hiding under the identity of Moye. He originally wanted to obtain the sacred elixir by himself. Who would have thought that he would meet Yiguchen? However, Moye did not approach Yiguchen immediately. If he had approached Yiguchen from the beginning, he would have attracted the suspicion of Tuoba Shang and the others. Later, after entering the tomb of the divines and demons and Yiguchen forcefully seized the sacred elixir, Moye revealed his identity. Su Moyan did not reveal his identity immediately because he knew that Yiguchen would definitely be attacked. So, he had been hiding until he found a good opportunity to kill a heavyweight. Then, he directly attacked and killed the Golden Sun Saint's son. The death of a powerful Triple Crown king would naturally reduce the pressure on Yiguchen. Moye, how hateful. The eyes of Tuoba Shang, Feng Xiaotian, and the others turned red. They had never imagined that they would be fooled by Su Moyan all this time. Even the Golden Sun Saint's son had died because of this. It was a great loss. Although Tuoba Shang's side still had the upper hand in the current situation, after losing the Golden Sun Saint's son, their strength had weakened a lot. Outside the tomb of the divines and demons, Wan Yanlan and the other 5 elements temple experts' faces were gloomy. Yiguchen alone had already infuriated them, and now Su Moyan had appeared as well. Can anyone enter the door of the ancient god, the sacred land of the barbarian tribe? Wan Yanlan's face was cold, and his tone was cold. Everyone in the surroundings kept silent for fear of provoking Wan Yanlan. Elder Wan Yanlan, don't worry. After the door of the ancient god ends, neither of them will be able to escape. The Tuoba family's grand elder said hurriedly. Inside the great tomb, Su Moyan and Yiguchen stood side by side. You can, Su Moyan said after a moment of silence. Yiguchen glanced at Su Moyan in surprise. One should know that Su Moyan had always been prejudiced against Yiguchen. Even though Yiguchen was already a sword master in the Saint Origin dynasty and was known as a top heaven's pride, Su Moyan had always doubted him. Yiguchen was surprised to hear such words coming from Su Moyan's mouth. But what he didn't know was that the reason he had gained Su Moyan's approval was because of his performance. For the sake of seizing the sacred medicine, he single-handedly blocked the pass and swept through all 4 directions. This proved that Yi Guqin truly cared about Su Jianshi. How could Su Moyan not see it? This is what I should do. Yi Guqin didn't feel that he had sacrificed much. Because Su Jianshi had sacrificed much more. No matter what, you still worked hard to obtain the sacred medicine for my sister. I'm sorry for doubting you before. Su Moyan's expression was still cold, like an iceberg that hadn't changed in 10,000 years, but his tone was much warmer. You're saying this? Yi Guqin frowned slightly. Su Moyan said indifferently, although I've obtained the sacred medicine, I must bring it back to my sister. So, I'll leave it to you. Su Moyan meant that he would block everything for Yi Guqin. It's impossible to keep you here. Yi Guqin frowned. If he really let Su Moyan stay behind to bring out the sacred medicine, how would Su Jianshi accept the cruel reality when she woke up and found her brother dead? My death isn't important. What's important is that my sister wakes up. Su Moyan didn't seem to care about his own life. That's also impossible. There must be a way for us to leave safely. Yi Guqin pondered. At this moment, the ancient voice seemed to ring out in his mind once again. My bloodline has returned from the underground. The monster is about to be unsealed. Yi Guqin looked around. Suddenly, he saw a circular depression in the center of the ground where countless totem patterns gathered. Could that be? Yi Guqin's eyes flashed as he rushed to the center of the great tomb. He took out the 5 divine beast jade and pressed it against the depression. In an instant, the entire great tomb shook as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. What's going on? What's going on? Everyone was puzzled. Only Tuoba Shang stared at Yi Guqin with a stern expression. He saw the 5 divine beasts jade in Yi Guqin's hand. He understood that the door to the tomb of the gods and demons wasn't open because of his bloodline, but because Yi Guqin had secretly used the ancient jade. Damn it! Tuoba Shang's expression was extremely ugly. It was as if someone had slapped him hard in the face. The moment Yi Guqin pressed the 5 divine beasts jade into the depression, the ground around him suddenly distorted like a whirlpool. It pulled Yi Guqin into it as if he had fallen into quicksand. Tuoba Shang's footsteps flashed as he tried to escape. Don't even think about it. Su Moyan's eyes sharpened. Although he didn't know what method Yi Guqin had used, at least there was an exit. Su Moyan decided to stay behind and guard the entrance to the whirlpool. Just as Su Moyan was about to stop them, the lion and tiger saints, Feng Shaotian, and all the saints and saintesses, even Mulanhua, were about to enter the whirlpool. They all guessed that the greatest opportunity and inheritance in the tomb of the gods and demons, the ancestral bloodline, was inside the whirlpool. Su Moyan was delayed by Feng Shaotian and the others and couldn't stop Tuoba Shang from entering. However, the others weren't as observant as Tuoba Shang and didn't rush out immediately. Sigh. Su Moyan sighed softly in his heart. However, Tuoba Shang alone shouldn't be a threat to Yi Guqin. However, Su Moyan wouldn't let the others enter. Su Moyan wielded his long sword, Mo Kuang, and swept his sword across the ground, creating a crack that was at least 9 feet deep. Anyone who crosses this line will die. Su Moyan's tone was extremely cold as his cold gaze swept across the scene. Do you think you can stop all of us by yourself? Even Yi Guqin can't do it. Feng Xiaotian's expression was stern. The whirlpool entrance might be related to the ancestral bloodline and the only chance to become a young king. These barbarian saints and saintesses would do their best to enter, even if it meant risking their lives. No matter how strong a tiger was, how could it defeat a pack of wolves? Su Moyan's face was as cold as an ancient iceberg. He formed a seal with his hands and shouted coldly, "Infinite heaven and earth, blood spirit borrowing power, life devouring secret technique, activate." With a loud explosion, Su Moyan's blood burned, and an incomparably vigorous genuine qi burst out like a torrent. His aura skyrocketed from the peak of the 9 changes of divine soul to the hidden gate of life and death. Even Yi Guqin's soul-devouring secret technique couldn't break through the shackles of the realm and raise Yi Guqin's cultivation to the hidden gate of life and death. However, Su Moyan's life-devouring secret technique could. Because the life-devouring secret technique was based on Su Moyan's vitality. Su Moyan was burning his own life force in order to borrow this kind of power. The hidden gate of life and death. Feng Xiaotian and the others all looked wary. The strength of the hidden gate of life and death was not on the same level as the peak of the 9 changes of divine soul. However, they had many people on their side, while Su Moyan was alone. Pfft! Before Su Moyan made a move, he spat out a mouthful of black blood. His face became extremely pale, but it also became colder. Yi Guqin, I'll burn my vitality to guard this boundary for you. I hope you can bring the sacred medicine out and save my sister. Sister, I may not be able to see you wake up, but as long as you're alive, I'll still smile in the underworld. Su Moyan's cold face suddenly revealed a faint smile. This kind of sibling love was a love that could disregard life and death. The bloodline inheritance of our ancestors is right in front of us. Let's kill him together. He reached the hidden gate of life and death with a secret technique. He won't last long. Feng Xiaotian, Tuoba Lai, White Lion Saint Sun, Black Tiger Saint Sun, Mulan Fang, Mulan Xuan, and more than 20 Saint Sons and Saintesses of the barbarian race rushed towards Su Moyan. The weakest among them was a double crown champion. On one side were more than 20 Saint Sons and Saintesses, whose eyes were bloodshot. They wanted to obtain the inheritance of their ancestors even at the cost of their lives. On the other side was Su Moyan, who burned his vitality to reach the hidden gate of life and death. This battle was destined to be tragic. Chapter 579. Just as Su Moyan was burning his life force to block the barbarian race holy sons and holy daughters for Yi Guqin, who was pulled into the vortex, suddenly found himself in another strange space. Yi Guqin looked around. This was an extremely ancient land. The ground was dark red, as if it was soaked in countless amounts of blood. There were also many huge white skeletons lying on the ground, as tall as mountains. I didn't expect there to be such a strange space in the tomb of the gods and demons, Yi Guqin said to himself as he put away the 5 divine beasts' jade. There was a space inside the door of the ancient gods, but there was another hidden space in the tomb of the gods and demons. Yi Guqin finally understood why no one had been able to obtain the so-called ancestral bloodline or even enter the tomb of the gods and demons. It was because they didn't even have the 5 divine beasts' jade. Su Moyan didn't follow me. Yi Guqin frowned. However, he didn't know how to leave this space because there was no exit. The entrance to the vortex was already nowhere to be found. Without waiting for Su Moyan, Yi Guqin thought for a moment, then flashed forward. If his guess was right, he might be able to resolve the current crisis if he could obtain the ancient god's inheritance. Not long after Yi Guqin left, a distorted vortex appeared in the void again. Tuoba Shang's figure fell from it. He was also confused for a moment, then his expression suddenly revealed extreme joy. This is the real opportunity in the tomb of the gods and demons. The ancestral bloodline is inside. If I obtain it, I can directly become a young king. A pitch-black light suddenly flashed in Tuoba Shang's eyes. A faint pitch-black demonic aura was faintly spreading out from his body. The demon chi was the same as the demon chi of the demonized ape. However, what was surprising was that Tuoba Shang didn't seem to be affected by the demon chi at all and didn't transform into the so-called demonized ape. On the other side, Yi Guqin walked on the ancient land. He discovered that the natural elements in this space seemed to be denser than in the outside world. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, and the other natural elements were extremely concentrated here. They were at least 10 times more concentrated than the 5 elements in the outside world. It could be said that this was a heaven for the barbarians to cultivate their totems. If the 5 elements berserkers had obtained this treasured land, then many powerful berserkers would have appeared a long time ago, and even the 7 great forces of power might not be able to suppress them. Where is the ancient god clan's land of inheritance? Yi Guqin was searching. The so-called inheritance of the barbarian tribe's ancestors was the inheritance of the ancient god clan. At this time, Yiguchin suddenly saw a thick black demonic chi in the distance. It seemed to form a black pillar that pierced through the heavens and earth. Yiguchin's eyes flashed as he approached swiftly. To his surprise, he noticed that it was an enormous pitch-black hole that was almost 3 kilometers wide. Endless demonic chi surged out of the hole. To a certain extent, it was similar to the bottomless demon abyss. Anyone who came into contact with this dense demonic chi would turn into a demonic ape. Yiguchin frowned slightly and activated the ancient god's skill. His body grew taller, and ancient light runes spread out from his body. A faint star mark appeared between his eyebrows. The moment Yiguchin transformed into his ancient god form, the ancient voice sounded again. The inheritor of my clan, return. The source of the sound was inside the cave. Enter. Yiguchin had no other choice. He could only take the risk and become the true inheritor of the ancient god clan. Only then would he be able to resolve the crisis. Not long after Yiguchin entered the hole, Tuoba Shang also arrived. It's here. The voice told me that it's here. Tuoba Shang's eyes were pitch black, as if they were filled with thick demonic chi. He did not use any protection, nor did he use any totem power. He jumped into the hole directly. Strangely, the thick demonic chi did not affect Tuoba Shang at all. Instead, it made Tuoba Shang feel like a fish in water. His aura rose again. Yiguchin entered the depths of the hole. Totem power surged around his body, mixed with the power of the ancient god's skill. The ancient god's skill was the best at restraining demonic chi. Hence, the thick demonic chi did not affect him much. After a full quarter of an hour, Yiguchin finally reached the bottom of the cave. The bottom of the hole was beyond Yiguchin's expectations. That was because the entire underground space was as vast as the sky. If one were to shout, one would even hear a loud echo. This was no longer a cave. It was more like an underground world. Yiguchin continued to walk forward. At that moment, a few figures flashed through the dark demonic chi and charged toward Yiguchin. It was a group of demon apes. Humph! Yiguchin snorted. He unleashed all his power. It was easy to deal with the demon apes. He waved the blood hell sword and shattered the demon apes. But what followed was even more demonic apes. These demon apes can't be killed. Let's go straight to the deepest part. Yiguchin made up his mind. He did not want to be entangled with the demon apes. He used wave-like subtle steps and shuttled through the demon apes like a phantom. In the end, Yiguchin shook off the demon apes and reached the deepest part of the underground world. However, the scene in front of him shocked him. An incomparably huge pitch-black demonic ape existed within it. The demon ape was hundreds of feet tall. It was like a black primordial demon mountain. It was like a demon ape that had been magnified countless times. However, unlike the demonized ape, this black devil ape had 3 heads and 6 arms. Its entire body was branded with all sorts of ancient, pitch-black devil runes. At this moment, the 3 heads of the demonic ape had dark shackles around their necks. Its 6 thick ape arms were also covered in sealing chains. At the same time, there was an extremely mysterious and ancient formation on the ground where the demon ape was standing. It slowly rotated. Every time it rotated, a portion of the demon ape's flesh and blood essence would be refined. It was obvious that the demon ape was imprisoned here and refined for eternity. In the end, it would turn into nothingness. However, Yiguchin saw that the light and runes on the ancient formation had already dimmed and become blurry. It was obvious that it was starting to find it difficult to suppress the demon ape. At the same time, Yiguchin's gaze froze. Behind the demon ape, there was an extremely tall figure that was not any weaker than the demon ape. Behind the demon ape, it seemed to be suppressing the demon ape. The figure was like a golden statue. It was no different from a human, except that it had been magnified countless times. Its entire body was branded with ancient light runes. On its forehead, there were 4 shining stars. A 4-star ancient god. Yi Guqin was astonished. He was at most a half-star ancient god. However, the ancient god in the golden statue was a 4-star ancient god. The gap between them was extremely large. However, the most important thing was that Yi Guqin could sense a weak life force from the golden ancient god statue. Could it be a living ancient god and not a statue? Yi Guqin could not help but wonder. At that moment, the ancient voice sounded in Yi Guqin's mind again. My successor, put the ancient god's jade archive into my heart. The ancient god's jade archive, could it be the 5 mythical beasts' ancient jade? Yi Guqin suddenly understood. Just as Yi Guqin was about to place the 5 mythical beasts' ancient jade, which was the ancient god's jade archive, in the heart of the golden ancient god statue, a cold voice abruptly sounded. Yi Guqin, are you still dreaming of inheriting the barbarian tribe's ancestors' legacy? Yi Guqin stopped and turned to look at the person who had come. You actually managed to find your way here. Yi Guqin frowned slightly. Although this mysterious land was not particularly big, it was vast and boundless. He was able to come here because of the ancient voice in his mind. How did Tuoba Shang come here? Tuoba Shang sneered and said, maybe I am the one chosen by heaven. I am destined to inherit the barbarian tribe's ancestors' legacy, and the title of young master is also destined to fall into my hands. In fact, what he did not say was that there was also an ancient voice in his mind that allowed him to find his way here. There is no point in saying more. You are just a loser. If I can defeat you once, I can defeat you again. Yi Guqin was wearing the Sky Demon General armor and holding the Blood Hell sword in his hand while maintaining his ancient god form. Ha! I have come out of the life and death cave and I am much stronger than before. Now that there are only the 2 of us, I, Tuoba Shang, will take back all the humiliation you have given me. As soon as Tuoba Shang finished speaking, a violent and terrifying aura rose from Tuoba Shang's body. His strength had reached the life and death hidden realm. Chapter 580. The enmity between Tuoba Shang and Yi Guqin started in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, and it would not end until one of them was dead. Both of them wanted to obtain the inheritance of the ancient god tribe. This kind of conflict was unavoidable. It could only end with the fall of one of them. Tuoba Shang, let's end this between us today. Yi Guqin said calmly. Although Tuoba Shang had revealed his strength at the life and death chamber, his expression did not change. Are you pretending to be calm? Tuoba Shang smiled coldly. He did not believe that Yi Guqin was not surprised that he had entered the life and death chamber. One should know that the difference between the life and death chamber and the peak of the 9 transformations divine soul was not small. Boom! Yi Guqin didn't want to say anything more. He stomped his feet on the ground and a terrifying rebounding force erupted. Yi Guqin's body flew towards Tuoba Shang like a cannonball due to the rebounding force. God-slaying sword art, yellow spring. A sword flashed across the sky. The blood-red sword radiance was as bright as blood. As Yi Guqin's strength and cultivation improved, his various swordsmanship became more powerful. Even a casual strike of his sword had the terrifying power to split the air. Totem power surged into Tuoba Shang's body. With a loud boom, his 4 supreme totem spirits rushed out from his body. Golden Saint Elephant, Undying Green Python, Flaming Demon Lizard and Earth Dragon Beast. The moment the 4 supreme totems appeared, the pressure was terrifying. The vigorous totem power directly destroyed the blood-red sword light. Yi Guqin's expression did not change as he summoned the 5 ancestral totems in his body. Green Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise and Ting Snake. As soon as the 5 primogenitor totems appeared, the entire space seemed to vibrate. An unparalleled sense of oppression attacked Tuoba Shang. His 4 supreme totems were suppressed once again. However, Tuoba Shang's expression did not change much. Yi Guqin, I've told you before that I'm different from before. Because I'm also 5 Crown King. Tuoba Shang revealed a cold smile. Soon after, he formed a seal with his hands once again. A wave of water attribute totem power spread out with a loud bang. Roar. Following a roar, a powerful exotic beast spirit covered in aqua-blue scales suddenly leapt out of Tuoba Shang's body. The supreme water-type totem, the water unicorn beast. Boom. On Tuoba Shang's side, with the addition of the water unicorn beast, his 5 supreme totems formed a 5 elements rotation. A strong 5 elements totem power spread out. The pressure of Yi Guqin's ancestral totem was instantly reduced by half. This was because Yi Guqin's totem pressure was divided into 2 parts. One was the suppression of the progenitor totem, and the other was the suppression of the 5 elements totem. However, now that the water unicorn beast had appeared, and Tuoba Shang had become the 5-crown king with the 5 elements totem, the 5 elements totem had disappeared. Only the suppression of the progenitor totem was left. Yi Guqin, you have no idea what kind of opportunity one obtained in the life and death cave. This water unicorn beast is a water-type totem spiritual seal that I obtained in the life and death cave. Tuoba Shang activated the power of the 5 elements totem and clashed with Yi Guqin. Although there was still the suppression of the progenitor totem, Tuoba Shang had already become a life and death hidden latch. In terms of cultivation realm, he was already able to suppress Yi Guqin. Therefore, it was Yi Guqin who was being suppressed by Tuoba Shang. Yi Guqin, I'll let you have a taste of being crushed to the ground. Tuoba Shang made a move. Golden light gathered and the Saint Elephant Heaven Suppression Seal appeared in mid-air, pressing down on Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin's eyes sharpened. Although Tuoba Shang was different from before, Yi Guqin had not remained stagnant. Purple void mysterious thunder. Yi Guqin raised one hand and a terrifying silver-purple thunder burst out, bombarding the Saint Elephant Heaven Suppression Seal. Flame Demon Tyrant Fist. Tuoba Shang threw a punch at Yi Guqin. His fiery totem power gushed out like an erupting volcano, aiming directly at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin brandished his blood prison sword to block the attack. A terrifying force was transmitted from the sword. However, Yi Guqin, who had entered the ancient god form, had terrifying physical strength. He shook his sword and deflected Tuoba Shang's punch. Tuoba Shang threw another punch, accompanied by the shadow of a green python. It was as if it was going to bite Yi Guqin. It was the sky-devouring green python. Great Void Sword Wave. Yi Guqin shook his sword again, resonating with the void. A terrifying sword wave spread out, shattering the green python's shadow. Tuoba Shang's expression changed slightly. He was proficient in the use of various totem powers. However, Yi Guqin was using a genuine energy unique skill. Even Tuoba Shang had to be careful when dealing with it. In an instant, the sword wave swept across Tuoba Shang's body. He felt as if his internal organs were resonating and trembling. He felt as if they were about to shatter. 5 Elements Overlord Body. Tuoba Shang roared furiously as rich 5 elements power gushed out from within his body. Then, numerous 5-colored runes spread out from the surface of his body, seemingly covering his entire body. As the 5-colored runes spread, the power of the sword ripple was completely neutralized. Tuoba Shang grew taller. His aura and physical strength became even stronger. He was like an awakened beast. Yi Guqin, I will tear you to pieces. Tuoba Shang's muscles bulged. Every move he made cracked the ground. The 5-colored divine light was like a blade cutting through the void. This showed how powerful the 5 elements overlord body was. Yi Guqin stepped forward again. He swung his blood prison sword and fought with Tuoba Shang. Boom! 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 Continuous sounds of explosions and collisions shook the void as cracks spread out. This extremely violent aura seemed to have attracted the 3-headed 6-arms demon ape and the golden ancient god statue. Devil chi and golden light seemed to spread from their bodies as well. Boom! After another collision, Yi Guqin's sword hit Tuoba Shang's shoulder. However, Tuoba Shang, who had entered the hidden latch of life and death, had activated the 5 elements overlord body. His physical body was comparable to metal. Although the blood prison sword had cut into Tuoba Shang's skin, it did not cut off his entire arm. At the same time, Tuoba Shang threw out a punch. 5 Vulvajra fist. An intense 5-colored divine radiance gathered on the tip of Tuoba Shang's fist. Then, it landed heavily on Yiguchen's chest. Even with the protection of the heavenly demon general armor, Yiguchen felt a terrifying force bursting out from his chest. His body was also sent flying and smashed into a wall. If it had been an ordinary person, even Feng Xiaotian or the Golden Sun Saint Sun, who were Triple Crown Kings, they would have been killed by Tuoba Shang's punch. However, Yi Guchen's heavenly demon general armor, coupled with his ancient god form, had only injured him. It was not fatal. Ha! Ha! The sound of panting echoed in the air. Yi Guchen escaped from the crack in the wall. He felt his blood boiling in his chest. As for Tuoba Shang's shoulder, it was also bleeding. This is the power of the hidden latch of life and death? Yi Guchen sneered. Tuoba Shang's face changed immediately. Yi Guchen's words were harsh to his ears. Then I will let you know what the hidden latch of life and death is. Tuoba Shang said coldly. At this moment, his totem power and soul power completely exploded. Chapter 581. The difference between life and death realm and divine soul realm was that besides the ability to form wings of true qi, one could also open the dantian and sea of consciousness. The power in the dantian and the soul power in the sea of consciousness could merge and produce greater power. As for the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth, it was an illusory bridge of spiritual qi in the dantian and sea of consciousness. It allowed one to communicate with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, thus giving one the ability to step on the void. But no matter what, life and death realm and spiritual bridge of heaven and earth were far beyond the divine soul realm. Even if Yi Guchen was strong enough to fight against life and death realm experts, his true qi was still not enough. But his true qi could not merge with soul power and could only be used separately. Soul power had its own means of attack. And true qi had its own means of attack. But at this moment, Tuoba Shang's totem power was communicating with his soul power, causing his aura to soar. The totem power also had a spiritual nature and was very flexible. Oh, only the minor threshold? Yi Guchen sneered. He could also feel that Tuoba Shang's breakthrough in life and death realm was not complete. So what? I'll kill you and take the ancestors' inheritance. It will cleanse my body, open my dantian and sea of consciousness, and become a great threshold expert. Tuoba Shang did not care at all. Minor threshold and great threshold. The difference of one word was like heaven and earth. Originally, such a realm could not be changed once it was broken through. But the ancient god clan's opportunities were miraculous. If he could cleanse his body with the ancient god bloodline, Tuoba Shang was confident that it would be possible for him to reach the great threshold. But before that, I'll take care of you first. Tuoba Shang took a step forward. Almost instantly, his figure appeared 10 feet in front of Yi Guchen. So fast, Yi Guchen was slightly shocked. He used wave-like subtle steps, and his figure was unpredictable like a phantom. Tuoba Shang sneered. His soul power burst out along with the power of the totem and bombarded Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's perfect sea of consciousness churned violently in his mind. A spiritual power that was not weaker than Tuoba Shang's suddenly surged out. How is this possible? Tuoba Shang's expression changed. For the first time, he was shocked. The soul power released by Yi Guchen was even more powerful than that of a life and death chamber warrior. This was simply unreasonable. He felt a trace of unease in his heart. This caused Tuoba Shang's killing intent towards Yi Guchen to skyrocket. 5 Elements Fist. Tuoba Shang punched out again. 5 fist shadows shot out at the same time. Yi Guchen paused and dodged to the side again. Just when he thought he had dodged Tuoba Shang's attack, Tuoba Shang sneered. Yiguchen, I'll let you understand what it means to be a life and death chamber expert. Following Tuoba Shang's thought, the five-fist shadows turned around and bombarded Yiguchen's body. Soul power. Yiguchen's eyes flashed. The five-fist shadows formed by the power of the totem actually carried a faint soul ripple. This was a technique that belonged to a life and death chamber expert. The combination of two powers could make one's moves more flexible and easier to control. Boom. 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 5 explosions sounded out continuously. Yiguchen's body trembled as he flew back dozens of feet. Finally, his feet landed heavily on the ground. With a loud bang, smoke and dust rose. Cough, Yiguchen coughed out a strand of blood from the corner of his mouth. Heh. Yiguchen, sword sect, 5-crown king, where's your glory from before? Tuoba Shang laughed as he grasped the opportunity and charged at Yiguchen again. His speed, power, and flexibility in controlling his moves were far beyond Yiguchen's. Yiguchen's expression was calm. He didn't lose his footing just because he was at a disadvantage. Gravity Sword Domain, go. A burst of sword intent burst out from Yiguchen's body, causing the surrounding void to distort. An illusory ancient divine mountain appeared. In an instant, a powerful suppressive force crashed down on Tuoba Shang. Tuoba Shang immediately felt as if an ancient divine mountain was pressing down on his shoulder. His speed and flexibility had decreased by a lot. Sword Dao Domain. You have a lot of tricks, but this is still not enough. Tuoba Shang was slightly surprised, but he still didn't care. Yiguchen's Sword Dao Domain was extremely illusory. It might be effective in suppressing ordinary experts. However, to Tuoba Shang, who was in the life and death chamber, it could only restrict him. Yiguchen sighed inwardly. If his edgeless sword intent had completely transformed into Sword Dao, then the true Sword Dao domain would be 10 times stronger than this illusory one. At that time, he would be able to suppress experts one level higher than Yiguchen. However, it was still not enough. Yiguchen didn't hesitate and brought out the Azura sword intent again. An illusory 18-level prison of blood emerged from the sea of blood formed by the sword intent. A vigorous aura of slaughter filled the entire space. Sword Dao domain again. Tuoba Shang frowned. Although he had heard before that Yiguchen, as a sword master, had extraordinary swordsmanship skills. However, after experiencing it personally, he knew that Yiguchen was difficult to deal with. If he hadn't obtained an opportunity and entered the life and death chamber, he might not have been Yiguchen's opponent. God-slaying sword art, Permitha. Yiguchen used the Azura sword intent to activate the God-slaying sword arts Permitha, multiplying the power of this move. Yiguchen had rich battle experience. He used the gravity sword domain to restrict Tuoba Shang's movements. Then, he used the 18 layers of Azura Blood Sea and the God-slaying sword art to attack Tuoba Shang. Come, demonic 7 kills. Tuoba Shang's aura erupted. Vaguely, there seemed to be a pitch-black air current. This aura made Yiguchen frown. This aura seemed to be similar to the demonic chi here. Boom. Boom. Boom, Tuoba Shang threw out 7 punches. Each punch had the power to split mountains. Boom. Violent shockwaves swept out in all directions. Both of them retreated. Yiguchen frowned and seized the opportunity to attack again. He slashed the blood prison sword at Tuoba Shang's head. Yiguchen, do you think you can defeat me with this little trick? The 5 elemental totem power surged out from Tuoba Shang's body. It seemed to have turned into a protective shield to block Yiguchen's attack. Humph, Yiguchen's lips curled into a cold smile. In his sea of consciousness, the meteorite demonic butterfly began to flap its wings. Shortly after, an extremely thin needle pierced through the air and shot into Tuoba Shang's sea of consciousness. Although Tuoba Shang had a spiritual item guarding his sea of consciousness, that needle was the soul-shattering needle. Boom! A surge of soul power exploded in Tuoba Shang's sea of consciousness. Even though he had the life and death threshold, he couldn't endure it. He felt a splitting headache. At this moment, Yiguchen's eyes were swallowed by blood. 2 pitch-black flames burned in his eyes. When Tuoba Shang's eyes met Yiguchen's evil eyes, his entire body stiffened. Countless illusions appeared in his mind. The Eye of Azura and the Heart Demon Fire. This was Yiguchen's move. Chapter 582. The Eye of Azura was an ability that Yiguchen had comprehended through the Azura sword essence. In previous battles, Yiguchen had relied on the Eye of Azura many times to catch the enemy's weakness and defeat them in one blow. Previously, after Yiguchen had refined the demonic heart flame, he had also obtained the demonic heart flame. The Eye of Azura and the demonic heart flame were somewhat similar. However, the Eye of Cultivation was able to manifest countless Azura illusions in the enemy's mind. On the other hand, the demonic heart flame was able to trigger the inner demons hidden in the enemy's heart. Although they looked similar, they were fundamentally different. Therefore, Yiguchen had been thinking about how to combine the two to form a more powerful combination technique. One could imagine that when the Azura illusions and inner demons appeared in the enemy's mind at the same time, the sudden attack would catch the enemy off guard. In addition, Yiguchen had used the Soul Breaker Star Needle to break Tuoba Shang's spiritual item and injure his sea of consciousness. This allowed him to fully utilize these two techniques. Ah! At this moment, Tuoba Shang had obviously been hit. His body stiffened as he hugged his head with both hands. The totem power in his body surged violently in all directions as if he had been possessed by a demon. The effect of this combination technique was beyond Yiguchen's expectations. Of course, it also consumed a lot of soul power. If Yiguchen had not broken through to the Great Perfection Sea of Consciousness, his previous Sea of Consciousness would not have been able to withstand such consumption. However, Yiguchen ignored the tiredness in his Sea of Consciousness. He naturally had to seize this opportunity. Demonic Heart Flame. On the surface of Yiguchen's body, a pitch-black flame surged out and enveloped Tuoba Shang. Ah! A violent howl came from the pitch-black flame. The demonic heart flame was extremely powerful and had the ability to burn the soul. Both Tuoba Shang's body and soul were suffering from the burning of the demonic heart flame. Tuoba Shang, it's over. Yiguchen once again stimulated his Qi Si to its limit. Vigorous Shen Qi burst out and poured into the Blood Hell sword. At the same time, he activated the Rending Edge array on the Blood Hell sword, making this move even more powerful. Myriad God Tribulation, Heaven and Earth Annihilation. Yiguchen shouted coldly as the wings of swords appeared on his back. Incomparably ferocious sword Qi burst forth, seemingly possessing the terrifying power to destroy the heavens. The powerful sword energy gathered at the tip of the sword and shot toward Tuoba Shang. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The entire underground space seemed to be held by a giant's hand, shaking crazily. Sword light, flames, and dust scattered in all directions. A loud explosion resounded throughout the underground space. Phew! Yiguchen panted and shifted his gaze to the dust-filled area. Yiguchen believed that even Tuoba Shang, who was at life and death chamber, wouldn't be able to survive such an attack. Even if he was lucky, he would at most be left with a single breath. As the dust settled, Tuoba Shang's figure finally appeared. His current appearance could be said to be in a sorry state. His entire body was charred and peeled off, dripping with blood. It was a horrifying sight. What was even more horrifying was that there was a huge bloody hole in his chest. Even his beating heart could be seen. His entire heart was almost completely shattered. This was the piercing damage caused by the destruction of heaven and earth. Not many people could withstand it. However, what surprised Yiguchen was that Tuoba Shang was still breathing. He slowly raised his head. His scarlet eyes were like a beast that was about to devour its prey. It was incomparably terrifying. Yiguchen! Yi Guchen! Tuoba Shang let out an earth-shattering roar. It was mixed with unparalleled resentment, anger, hatred, and all kinds of negative emotions. At this moment, he was like a demon. He's not dead. Yi Guchen's brows furrowed. He was a little surprised. Tuoba Shang's vitality was too strong. It had exceeded his expectations. Moreover, his heart was shattered. How was it possible that he was still breathing? Yi Guchen faintly felt a trace of uneasiness in his heart. Yi Guchen, I want you dead. No one can stop me. I want you dead. Tuoba Shang's words were incoherent. He was incomparably furious. He had broken through to the life and death realm. He thought that he could completely crush Yi Guchen and wash away his previous humiliation. However, who would have thought that Yi Guchen would put him in such a sorry state? If he had not obtained that kind of inheritance in the life and death cave, he might have really died in Yi Guchen's hands today. Yi Guchen waited with rapt attention. He felt that something was wrong with Tuoba Shang. Tuoba Shang's eyes were scarlet. His hands started to form a strange seal. In an instant, Tuoba Shang's body seemed to have turned into a black hole. The surrounding demonic chi surged into Tuoba Shang's body like a tide. This. Yi Guchen was stunned for a moment. The demonic chi was something that even the barbarian tribe was wary of. Even the slightest contact with it would turn one into a demonic ape. However, Tuoba Shang was absorbing the demonic chi now. Could it be? Yi Guchen's eyes flickered. Devil fetus parasitic medium. Tuoba Shang let out a shrill cry. Almost all the demonic chi in the surrounding underground space was sucked into Tuoba Shang's body. When Tuoba Shang shouted out the devil fetus parasitic medium, the real three-headed six-arms demon ape that had been sealed by the formation started to tremble as if it was about to wake up. As the demonic chi was sucked in, visible changes appeared on Tuoba Shang's body. The charred skin fell off, revealing the black hair underneath. His body grew taller as if he had turned into a small giant. What was more shocking was that two sarcomas grew on both sides of Tuoba Shang's head. Then, two heads popped out. They were exactly the same as Tuoba Shang. 4 more arms grew out from both sides of his body. The current Tuoba Shang was exactly the same as the sealed three-headed six-arms demon ape. As expected, Tuoba Shang has obtained the inheritance of the demonic ape. Yi Guchen's heart sank. Since the demonic ape could fight against the ancient god clan, it meant that its strength was not inferior to the ancient god clan. However, what surprised Yi Guchen even more was that the demonized Tuoba Shang's body gradually rose into the air and stood in the void. The spiritual bridge of heaven and earth. After absorbing the demonic chi with the help of the devil fetus parasitic medium, Tuoba Shang's cultivation level had skyrocketed to the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth. The gap between them could no longer be bridged by any means. Yi Guchen could defeat or even kill a small hidden martial realm expert, but it was impossible for him to kill a spiritual bridge of heaven and earth expert. They were not on the same level at all. Yi Guchen, I bet you didn't expect that I would obtain the inheritance of the chaotic world demonic ape in the life and death cave. At this moment, Tuoba Shang had 3 heads and 6 eyes that were incomparably scarlet. The demonic ape's race is called the chaotic world demonic ape. Yi Guchen thought to himself, then said, Tuoba Shang, the chaotic world demonic ape is the archenemy of your barbarian tribe's ancestors. Aren't you afraid of being judged by the 5 Elements Temple after obtaining the inheritance? Ha, the 5 Elements Temple is nothing. I, Tuoba Shang, am the chosen one. After I kill you, I will obtain the inheritance of the ancient god clan. At that time, I will obtain the inheritance of the ancient god clan and the chaotic world demonic ape clan and become the true king of the barbarian tribe. Tuoba Shang's voice was loud and filled with ambition to devour the world. The ancient god clan and the chaotic world demonic ape clan were both one of the 100 clans in the universe. Just obtaining the inheritance of one of them would give one the foundation to become an expert. One could imagine how powerful Tuoba Shang would be when he grew up in the future if he obtained the inheritance of the 2 clans. If that happened, it wouldn't be as simple as the destruction of the Saint Origin dynasty. Even the entire South Horizon region would face a great catastrophe. Yi Guqin, hand over your life. Tuoba Shang casually threw out a palm that was filled with demonic qi. It was like an ancient demonic mountain that could suppress everything. Chapter 583. Powerful. Too powerful. Tuoba Shang, who had used the devil fetus parasitic medium to devour endless demonic qi, had reached the peak of his cultivation base. He was not someone Yi Guqin could fight against. Even if he wanted to, he was powerless. The gap between their realms was too big. Yi Guqin retreated rapidly, but the black palm formed by the demonic qi blocked all of Yi Guqin's escape routes like a black sky. The Sky Demon General armor on Yi Guqin's body released endless blood-red light. It should be known that the Sky Demon General armor was a supreme-grade mystical weapon with extremely strong defense. After Yi Guqin's continuous killing, the Sky Demon General armor had recovered a lot. It could be said that with the protection of the Sky Demon General armor, ordinary life and death realm experts would not be able to cause much damage to Yi Guqin. However, Tuoba Shang's strength had far surpassed the life and death realm. Puqi. Without any resistance, Yi Guqin was sent flying by the black demonic qi palm. Blood spurted out of his mouth as his body smashed into the side of the mountain. With just one blow, Yi Guqin was severely injured. Yi Guqin's body escaped, coughing up blood. Fortunately, Yi Guqin had a perfect body. In addition to his ancient god form, his body was tough and resilient. He also had the Heavenly Demon General armor to reduce some of the damage. That was why Yi Guqin was able to survive. Ha, Yi Guqin, you are now like an ant in my eyes. Tuoba Shang raised his head and laughed. He was in a good mood. He felt like he was the ruler of all living beings, overlooking the mountains and rivers. It was a comfortable feeling. It seems like Tuoba Shang has completely demonized. Yi Guqin lifted the blood-red mask and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Tuoba Shang's mind had long been demonized. He could no longer be considered a human. At most, he was a puppet of the chaotic world demonic ape. Demonic God Hand. Tuoba Shang raised his hand again and pressed down on Yi Guqin. The monstrous demonic qi once again turned into a huge black demonic hand. There were countless strange runes on the demonic hand. It looked like the hand of a demonic god. Rumble. Yi Guqin could not dodge the attack. He could only fight with all his might. Yi Guqin didn't show the slightest hint of fear in his eyes as he faced this overwhelming palm strike. Back in the heavenly wasteland plain, he had dared to attack Gu Xiaoyang, who was at the life and death chamber, with his qi-refining realm cultivation base. Not to mention now. A mere heaven and earth spirit bridge was not enough to make Yi Guqin despair. Soul-devouring secret technique. Yi Guqin activated the soul-devouring secret technique. His body seemed to have formed a bottomless pit. All the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the surrounding void was sucked into Yi Guqin's body. Although the spirit-devouring secret art couldn't help him break through to the life and death chamber, it could make the spirit qi in his body more vigorous and make his moves more powerful. Frenzy Blood Array. Yi Guqin activated the Frenzy Blood Array of the Heavenly Demon General armor once again. An extreme devouring power was emitted from the Heavenly Demon General armor, as if it wanted to devour all of his qi and blood. An astonishing aura was emitted from the Heavenly Demon General armor. The ferocious spikes grew out, and blood-colored runes circulated on the surface. The Frenzy Blood Array of the Heavenly Demon General armor was enough to double Yi Guqin's strength. Previously, Yi Guqin had activated the power of the Frenzy Blood Array to kill the life and death chamber expert of the Blood Barbarian tribe, Xue Lizhan. Yi Guqin's cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of the 9 transformations divine soul realm. Coupled with the soul-devouring secret technique, his strength was even more powerful. Now, with the help of the Frenzy Blood Array, his strength had doubled again. How powerful would Yi Guqin's strength become? Yiguchen clenched his fist and felt an extremely terrifying power brewing in his body. Although his cultivation base was still at the life and death chamber, in terms of true strength, ordinary minor profound martial realm experts were no match for Yiguchen. Yiguchen even felt that he could destroy a minor profound martial realm expert with a single punch. Heaven and Earth spiritual bridge, what's there to be afraid of? Yiguchen once again activated his two great sword intents. The fierce gravity sword domain pressed down, and the 18 layers of Azura blood sea overturned the heavens and earth. Yiguchen held the blood prison sword with both hands. At this moment, even space and time seemed to have frozen. The demonic god's hand was like a pitch-black sky collapsing as it pressed down. At this moment, Yiguchen's heart was incomparably calm. However, under the calm, there was an incomparably turbulent undercurrent. 10,000 deities tribulation, life fall, Yiguchen's sword swept across the sky. It was indescribable how tragic this sword was. It was as if blood was flowing, and millions of corpses were lying on the ground. What kind of sword technique is this? Even Tuoba Shang's face was filled with astonishment. He had never seen Yiguchen use this sword technique before. Even Yiguchen rarely used it. He wouldn't use it unless it was the last moment. This was because this move consumed too much energy. Of course, there was no need to doubt its power. Boom! An indescribable fluctuation swept through the entire underground space. Even the formation imprisoning the chaotic world demonic ape seemed to have been obliterated by this fluctuation. The dense demonic aura in the surroundings was also blown away by this fluctuation. Rumble. It was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. Under Tuoba Shang's astonished gaze, his demonic god's hand was suddenly split into two. Even the remaining sword light swept towards Tuoba Shang. Tuoba Shang made his move. Demonic aura surged as he resisted the sword light. Whoosh! Blood splattered as one of Tuoba Shang's pitch-black arms was thrown away. Blood splattered everywhere. Only 5 of his 6 arms were left. This. Tuoba Shang was stunned. He couldn't believe it. He relied on the devil fetus parasitic medium to absorb endless demonic aura. He didn't even hesitate to become a demon to reach the heaven and earth spiritual bridge realm. But now, one of his arms had been cut off by Yiguchen, who was in the divine soul realm. Although losing one of his arms wasn't a big deal to Tuoba Shang, it was a humiliation. However, that kind of humiliation was even more profound. Who would believe that a heaven and earth spiritual bridge realm martial artist had his arm cut off by a divine soul realm martial artist? Of course, although Tuoba Shang had paid a price, Yiguchen had paid a greater price. His entire body had sunk into the deep pit. Fresh blood gushed out, dyeing the already blood-red heavenly demon general armor even more sorrowful. Yiguchen stood up with difficulty and coughed up blood. He hadn't been in such a sorry state for a long time. However, if an outsider saw this scene, they would definitely look at Yiguchen in a new light. This was because he was able to cut off one of Tuoba Shang's arms even though he was 2 whole realms above him. This kind of ability was frightening. Yiguchen, no one can stop you from dying today. Demonic ape shakes the heavens. Tuoba Shang's eyes were scarlet. He was so angry that his internal organs were burning. He charged towards Yiguchen and wanted to tear Yiguchen apart. Yiguchen tried his best to recover from his injuries. Just as he was about to fight to the death, the ancient voice sounded in his mind again. My race's successor, bring the ancient god's jade archive into my heart. Yiguchen looked at the golden ancient god statue. This was Yiguchen's only chance at survival. Chapter 584. Previously, Yiguchen had relied on the ancient voice in his mind to reach this stage. Since Tuoba Shang could obtain the devil fetus parasitic medium, Yiguchen believed that the ancient god tribe would have a backup plan. Perhaps the ancient god tactic was the way to restrain the devil fetus parasitic medium. However, Yiguchen could not compete with Tuoba Shang in his current realm. His only chance was to follow the ancient voice in his mind. There might still be a chance for him to survive. The ancient god Jade archive was the 5 sacred beasts' ancient jade. Yiguchin immediately understood. He waved his hand and a crimson figure appeared. Blood Cloud Puppet, go! The crimson figure was the Blood Cloud Puppet. It relied on the power of the demonic cloud blood crystal to activate it. Yiguchin had not used it until now because he wanted to use it as a trump card at the critical moment. Now that it was a matter of life and death, Yiguchin summoned the Blood Cloud Centipede. Boom! Without any hesitation, Yiguchin activated the power of the Blood Cloud Puppet to the maximum. A terrifying aura emanated from the Blood Cloud Puppet. Its strength had reached the level of the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth. Of course, the energy used to raise the Blood Cloud Puppet's strength to the level of the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth was also terrifying. The demonic cloud blood crystal was being consumed at the speed of combustion. It would not last long. Bang! The Blood Cloud Puppet stomped on the ground and charged toward Tuoba Shang like a cannonball. This is a puppet. Tuoba Shang was stunned. Boom! As the Blood Cloud Centipede's fist came crashing down, Tuoba Shang's 5 arms also came crashing down. Bang! 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 Continuous explosions rang out in the void as the Blood Cloud Mantis and Tuoba Shang were locked in a fierce battle. Tuoba Shang had 3 more arms. He punched the Blood Cloud Puppet and every time he punched it, it would be pushed back dozens of feet. However, the Blood Cloud Puppet was a puppet and did not feel pain. Tuoba Shang's attacks could only leave deep fist marks on its body. Do you think a puppet can save your life? Demonic chi surged all over Tuoba Shang's body. A pitch-black demonic seal appeared in mid-air and pressed down on the Blood Cloud Puppet. Hearing this, Yiguchin sneered. Naturally, he didn't plan to let the Blood Cloud Centipede deal with Tuoba Shang because it couldn't. His figure flashed as he dashed toward the golden ancient god statue. Could it be? Tuoba Shang caught a glimpse of something from the corner of his eye and his heart skipped a beat. In his mind, the same demonic voice entered his ears. Stop him. Stop him from awakening the ancient god. A demonic voice sounded in Tuoba Shang's mind. Yiguchin, if you want to make a comeback, don't even think about it. The pitch-black demonic seal forced the Blood Cloud Centipede back. Tuoba Shang then charged towards Yiguchin. However, the Blood Cloud Centipede was like a dogskin plaster, sticking tightly to Tuoba Shang and continuing the battle. Scram! Tuoba Shang punched out with his pitch-black demonic fist. There was actually a trace of panic in his heart. After using the devil fetus parasitic medium, Tuoba Shang thought that victory was already in his hands. No matter how strong Yiguchin was, he wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. However, Yiguchin, who was like an ant in his eyes, had the ability to threaten him. Just as the Blood Cloud Centipede was tangling with Tuoba Shang, Yiguchin finally climbed up the majestic golden ancient god statue. Yiguchin landed at the heart of the golden ancient god statue and took out the ancient god Jade archive. In an instant, the ancient god Jade archive, which was carved with the totems of the 5 mythical beasts, released a ball of 5-colored light that seemed to resonate with the golden ancient god statue. The majestic golden ancient god statue started to rumble and tremble. The golden light on the surface of the statue flickered as though it was breathing. No, Yiguchin, don't even think about it. When Tuoba Shang saw this, he couldn't take it anymore. Boundless demonic chi burst out from his body. Demonic Sky Destroyer. Tuoba Shang raised one of his hands and the boundless demonic chi turned into a pitch-black demonic staff. He waved one of his hands and the pitch-black demonic staff hit the Blood Cloud Centipede with a force that could destroy the sky. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded in all directions. The Blood Cloud Centipede was blown up by Tuoba Shang's demonic staff. Then, Tuoba Shang's body flashed and he charged toward Yiguchin. Just as Tuoba Shang's fist was about to hit Yiguchin's body. Suddenly, a ball of golden light spread out from the golden ancient god statue and turned into a barrier. Boom! When Tuoba Shang's fist landed on the golden barrier, he was sent flying by a huge recoil force. This. Tuoba Shang's face froze and his eyes turned even redder. With the ancient god Jade Archive in his hand, Yiguchin seemed to have turned into a ray of light and merged into the heart of the golden ancient god statue. In an instant, Yiguchin came to an inexplicable place as though the world had changed. A five-colored brilliance filled the air and countless totem shadows were imprinted in the surrounding void. My successor has finally arrived. Yiguchin muttered to himself. An ancient and loud voice echoed like the voice of a deity. Yiguchin looked around and saw an incomparably huge golden phantom appear in this space. Yiguchin was as small as an ant under the golden shadow's feet. You are indeed a senior from the ancient god clan. Yiguchin cupped his hands. I am a 4-star ancient god from the ancient god clan. My name is Heavenly Pupil King and I am here to suppress the chaotic world demon ape clan. A loud voice came from the golden shadow's mouth. I am Yiguchin. Greetings, Senior Heavenly Pupil King. Yiguchin took a deep breath and said. It was only after seeing such an ancient clan that one could feel its supreme power. I did not expect that the person who could inherit my legacy would be from that clan. Heavenly Pupil King looked deeply at Yiguchin. Yiguchin frowned slightly. That clan? Senior Heavenly Pupil King, what do you mean? Yiguchin was confused. You should know that there are 100 supreme clans in the all heavens. The ancient god clan is one of them and so is the chaotic world demon ape clan. However, I can see that your bloodline is also from one of the 100 clans in the all heavens, Heavenly Pupil King said meaningfully. Oh, may I know which clan I belong to? Yiguchin asked curiously. From the ancient existence of the ancient god clan, it could be seen that the so-called 100 clans in the all heavens must be extremely ancient and powerful clans. However, Yiguchin was born in an ordinary family. Neither his father, who had left when he was young, nor his aunt, Xian Su, had told him anything about his identity. Now, Heavenly Pupil King said that his bloodline was related to one of the 100 clans in the all heavens. This made Yiguchin curious. Didn't your clansmen tell you? Heavenly Pupil King asked. Yiguchin shook his head. The only clue he had about his background was the heavenly mountain. Yingning once said that her lover from 1,000 years ago also cultivated the universal sword scripture and came from the heavenly mountain. Since that is the case, there is no need for me to say more. You only need to know that your clan was once extremely glorious and was known as the #1 clan in the all heavens. However, later on. Heavenly Pupil King sighed. Later on. Yiguchin was puzzled. Later on, it became a taboo. Heavenly Pupil King was a little afraid and did not want to say more. Taboo, Yiguchin's eyes were deep. Chapter 585. Yiguchin did not know any of this. He did not even know where he was born and which clan he came from. However, Yiguchin did not force Heavenly I King to talk about it. Yiguchin would find out the truth himself. It seems like I'll have to leave the Saint Origin dynasty and head to the South Horizon region after I save Su Jianshi. Aunt Xian Su once said that she'll come to me when I'm strong enough to suppress Gu Xiaoyang. She'll tell me the truth and about my father. Yiguchin thought to himself. That's enough. Your clansmen must have their own plans for not telling you about this. It's not good for me to say too much. However, the most important thing right now is to completely suppress this chaos demon ape, said the Heavenly Eye Monarch. What should I do? Yiguchin asked. Fuse the ancient god's jade archive into my heart, Heavenly Eye King said. Yiguchin heard the sound of something falling down. Then, a giant heart appeared in Yiguchin's sight. The heart was not an ordinary blood-red color. Instead, it was golden. It was a golden heart that was as big as a small hill. Every time the golden heart beat, a golden aura would surge. It was like a perpetual motion machine, exuding an unparalleled vitality. My successor, remember that the ancient god clan has two sources of power. The first is the ancient god star between our eyebrows. Our clan can control the power of the 5 elements. Wind, lightning, light, darkness, and other elemental powers come from the source between our eyebrows. The second is the source of our physical strength, the ancient god heart. With the ancient god heart as the core, we can gather the ancient god power and refine our physical body. We can grasp the sun, the moon, and the stars. Heavenly I King's vast voice rang in Yiguchen's ears. Yiguchen knew that Heavenly I King was teaching him. It seems that the ancient light pattern is the ancient god power that surged out from the heart of the ancient god. Yiguchen suddenly realized. Previously, Yiguchen could only be considered as a half-star ancient god and he did not understand the source of ancient god's power. After King Tian Tong's explanation, Yiguchen understood a lot more. He did not hesitate and immediately fused the ancient god's jade archive into the golden ancient god's heart. Plop, plop, the moment it fused with the ancient god's heart, it began to beat even more violently. It was like a dragon that had been dormant for a long time had finally awakened. At this moment, from the outside, on the surface of the golden ancient god statue, ancient runes of light spread out like vines and covered the entire body of the ancient god. The ancient god, who had been frozen like a statue, was about to wake up and start to tremble. How is this possible? Tuoba Shang's face turned pale. However, no matter how he attacked, he was like an ant trying to shake a tree in front of the ancient god. He could not even cause a ripple. Yiguchen, how despicable. Tuoba Shang gritted his teeth and his body trembled with extreme anger. It's too late. The only hope is to fuse with my body and break the demon-eliminating formation. At this moment, the chaotic demonic voice sounded in Tuoba Shang's mind again. What? Tuoba Shang's body stiffened. Fuse with the chaotic world demon ape's body. Tuoba Shang looked at the chaotic world demon ape's body that was shackled in the formation and hesitated. Although he had turned into a demon, he still had a trace of rationality left. After all, Tuoba Shang was very ambitious. He wanted to be the king of the barbarian tribe in the future. If he fused with the chaotic world demon ape's body, who knew what would happen? He might even be assimilated. Just as Tuoba Shang was hesitating, the demonic voice sounded again. Hurry up. If you don't fuse with it, you won't have any chance when the ancient god completely awakens. Do you want to be defeated by him again and again? The ancient demonic voice was questioning and bewitching. No. I can't accept this. How can I, Tuoba Shang, accept being defeated by him again? When he thought of the humiliation in the Forbidden Zone, Tuoba Shang's eyes turned scarlet as if they were about to bleed. If he was defeated again, Tuoba Shang would really suffer a fate worse than death. Tuoba Shang lost the last trace of rationality and hesitation in his heart. He looked as if he had lost his mind. With a crazed look, he turned into a crimson light and was swallowed by the struggling chaotic world demon ape. After a moment of deathly silence, 3 angry roars were heard. Those were the 3 heads of the chaotic world demon ape, and they were roaring at the sky. Swoosh! The shackles and chains that wrapped around the chaotic world demon ape trembled violently as if the chaotic world demon ape was about to break free. Not good. The chaotic world demon ape is about to break free. Yiguchen heard the voice of Heavenly I King in the ancient god's body. At the same time, Yiguchen saw the scene outside. Tuoba Shang rushed toward the chaotic world demon ape and was swallowed. Pitiful. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. It was right to pursue power. However, it was sad to lose one's will in order to pursue power. In a short while, the chaotic world demon ape that had been trapped in the great demon extinguishing array seemed to have awakened and was struggling violently. Demonic chi spread out from the chaotic world demon ape's body, and the shackles and chains that bound it were broken one by one. Rumble. In the end, the chaotic world demon ape broke free from all the shackles. It let out a long roar that seemed to be able to shatter the stars in the sky. Bang! The great demon extinguishing array was completely broken, and strong air currents swept out in all directions. At this moment, outside the Five Elements Divine Temple, Wan Yanlan and the others felt that the entire door of the ancient god was trembling as if the earth was about to shatter. What happened? All the barbarian tribe experts were shocked. They could only see the situation in the Tomb of the Gods and Devils, but they could not see the mysterious space where Yiguchen and Tuoba Shang were. Originally, Wan Yanlan and the others were concerned about the bloody massacre in the Tomb of the Gods and Devils. But now, the entire door of the ancient gods seemed to have undergone a great change. Could it be, according to the ancient records of the barbarian tribe, the Five Elements Mountain and the door of the ancient god were used to suppress a ferocious demonic creature? Could it be that someone has awakened the demonic creature? Wan Yanlan immediately thought. His old face became incomparably ugly. It was even uglier than when Yiguchen's identity was exposed. Demonic creature, could it be that the legendary demonic creature of the barbarian tribe is about to be born? Oh my god, that's a calamity for the barbarian tribe. Some barbarian tribe experts suddenly thought of the ancient legend, and their faces were filled with fear and uneasiness. In front of the legendary demonic creature, even divine dwelling realm experts like Wan Yanlan and the heavenly barbarian king could not withstand a single blow. Compared to the calamity of the barbarian tribe, Yiguchen and the others were trivial matters. Could it be that Yiguchen triggered something and caused the demonic creature to awaken? The Grand Elder of the Tuoba family suddenly shouted loudly. That's right, it must be Yiguchen. He's not of our tribe, so his intentions must be different. He wants to destroy the barbarian tribe because of this, and Shang is desperately trying to stop Yiguchen, Tuoba Outyan also shouted. As expected, it's Yiguchen. He's really hateful. Not only did he take the 5 Crown Kings' inheritance, but he also wants to destroy the barbarian tribe. Fortunately, Tuoba Shang is here. I don't know if he can stop that vicious Yiguchen. All the barbarian tribe members present cursed Yiguchen fiercely. Could it really be him? Mulanbua did not quite believe it. This was because he had met Yiguchen for a short period of time. It was really hard for him to imagine that the taciturn, introverted young man with a sword-like temperament would come up with such a vicious plan. Everyone shut up and get ready. If it really is Yiguchen, I'll make him regret coming to the barbarian tribe. An extremely fierce look flashed across Wan Yanlan's old face. Even when Yiguchen's identity had been exposed, Wan Yanlan had only been angry. But now, when it came to the demonic creature, no matter who it was, they had touched Wan Yanlan's reverse scale. It could be said that part of the reason for the 5-element temple's existence was to guard and prevent the demonic creature from escaping. Chapter 586. Outside the Tomb of the Gods and Devils, all the barbarian tribesmen were pointing their spears at Yiguchen. In the mysterious space, an earth-shattering battle was about to take place. Roar! The roar was filled with the resentment of being suppressed for countless years, as if it wanted to break the heavens. The great demon-destroying array collapsed and the chaotic demonic ape was free. Almost at the same time, the golden statue-like body of Heavenly I King finally woke up. A pair of ancient eyes slowly opened. In an instant, it was as if the sun and the moon were in the sky. Heavenly I King's eyes were like the sun and the moon, carrying a grand and ancient aura. Chaotic demonic ape, you have betrayed the all heavens and sided with the foreign tribes. You deserve to die. An incomparably furious voice, like the voice of a god, echoed. Heavenly I King, don't mention that. The winner is king and the loser is a bandit. Today, I will take back all the suffering you have caused me for thousands of years. The 3-headed and 6-armed chaotic demonic ape roared, causing the space to tremble. At the same time, another voice sounded from the chaotic demonic ape's body. Yiguchen, so what if you have awakened the ancient god realm? You still have to die. You have to die. The voice was hoarse and mournful, as if it was possessed. However, one could still tell that it was Tuoba Shang's voice. On the other side, Yiguchen sneered and said, Tuoba Shang, the reason why an expert is because he has the heart of an expert. You are relying on borrowed strength. What right do you have to speak here? Yiguchen's voice also sounded through Heavenly I King. Ridiculous. When you enter the 9 underworlds, let's see if you still have the right to say such words. Tuoba Shang's resentful and cold voice sounded. Boom. Without any superfluous words, an earth-shattering battle broke out. Boom. 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 Heavenly I King and the chaotic demonic ape fought from the underground space to the vast and mysterious land outside. Demon destroying the heavens. The chaotic demonic ape's body was a few hundred feet tall, like an ancient demon mountain. He grabbed the void with one hand and endless demon chi gathered into a giant rod. He swung it out. Up in the sky, the clouds churned as if the heavens were about to shatter. With one strike, even 100 zhang tall mountain was about to shatter. Ancient god tactic, ancient god spear. On Heavenly I King's forehead, 4 stars shone brightly. His hand grabbed at the void. Above the firmament, the power of countless stars surged down and condensed into a golden spear in the void. It had a terrifying sharpness that could pierce through the endless void. Kill! Heavenly I King shouted. He wielded the ancient god spear and fought against the chaotic world demonic ape. Boom! Terrifying ripples spread out like a raging ocean, shattering the ground into pieces. Cracks spread across the ground like ravines and canyons. Yiguchen was shocked. He had never seen such a terrifying battle before. Yiguchen suspected that the aftermath of the battle alone was enough to kill a divine-dwelling expert. Even the venerables of the Heavenly Palace realm were far inferior to the Heavenly I King and the chaotic world demonic ape. They're so strong. What level have they reached? They must be stronger than venerables. Could they be Heavenly Tribulation Saints? Yiguchen was curious. A divine-dwelling expert could be called a king. In the Saint Origin dynasty, they were the top experts and could be the master of a sect. A Heavenly Palace expert could be called a venerable. Yiguchen had never seen them in person. He only had a venerable cave dwelling in the Baiming family in the Tianhuang Plains. And above that, a Heavenly Tribulation expert could be called a saint. Of course, Yiguchen didn't know much about Heavenly Tribulation saints. He had only heard a few words from Xian Su when he was young. But one thing was for sure. Saints were the top existences in the entire Nantian region, let alone the Saint Origin dynasty. As the saying went, transcending the tribulation to become a saint, a golden scale to become a dragon. Once one became a saint, one would be a true dragon of the 9th heaven, different from the ants on the ground. Yiguchen believed that the Heavenly I King and the chaotic world demonic ape were at least Heavenly Tribulation saints. Even among Heavenly Tribulation saints, they were the top existences. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such terrifying power. As they fought, the world seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. This was the power that only a saint who had undergone a heavenly tribulation could possess. It could shake the world and destroy the universe. Demon Annihilation Tenfold Realm. The 3 heads of the chaotic world demonic ape roared in unison. In the void, a pitch-black demonic realm seemed to appear. The chaotic world demonic ape struck out with its 6 arms, shattering the world. Countless pitch-black fragments, like ancient meteorites, charged towards the Heavenly I King. 5 Elements World-Suppressing Fist. The Heavenly I King's loud voice rang out as he punched out. The power of the 5 elements in the whole world seemed to converge on the Heavenly I King's fist. 5 colored halos wrapped around the Heavenly I King's arm, making his punch seem like it had the power to suppress the heavens. Boom! 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 Countless ancient meteorite-like fragments fell. The Heavenly I King's fist pressed forward as if it could break through everything. It broke through the blockade of countless meteorites and blasted towards the chaotic world demonic ape. Six-path demonic seal, the beginning of all demons. The chaotic world demonic ape's 6 arms were filled with the shadows of demonic rods, long spears, demonic blades, and other demonic weapons. Its 6 arms held 6 different demonic weapons, forming a demonic 6 paths of reincarnation as it clashed with the heavenly Eye King. Boom! It was indescribable. The shockwaves from the collision seemed to be able to destroy the universe and shatter the stars. Rumble. The surrounding ground collapsed as countless cracks spread out. The clouds in the sky were shattered, revealing the pitch-black stars. Undergoing the heavenly tribulation to become a saint, transforming the golden scales into a dragon. Is this the power of a saint? Yi Guqin was overwhelmed with emotions. In comparison, his previous duel with Tuoba Shang was like a child's play. A saint. Yi Guqin's pitch-black eyes were burning with flames. It was the desire for power, the pursuit of the pinnacle. Yi Guqin's lifelong wish was to reach the pinnacle of the world with one sword. One sword could destroy the heavens, shatter the stars, shake the 6 poles, and suppress the 8 desolates. As long as he became a saint, he would have this possibility. Yi Guqin's heart of the sword and heart of martial arts became even more determined. At the same time, Yi Guqin was also observing carefully. A battle of this level was a rare experience for Yi Guqin. It could be said that in the Saint Origin dynasty, or even the entire Nantian region, it was rare to see a battle between saints. Moreover, it was a top-notch saint. This was a great opportunity that was hard to come by. For Yi Guqin, there was a lot of enlightenment. After observing the heavenly Eye King's 5 elements world-suppressing fist, his understanding of the 5 elements sword essence had increased tremendously. He was almost on the verge of fully comprehending it. He also had a deeper understanding of the ancient god clan's battle techniques and the use of power. My successor, watch carefully. This is a great technique that the ancient god clan uses the ancient god power to activate. Heavenly Eye King suddenly transmitted his voice. Yi Guqin focused his attention. Heavenly Eye King's ancient god heart was beating violently. An extremely terrifying ancient god power gushed out from his heart like a vast river. Countless ancient light runes appeared on the surface of Heavenly Eye King's body. In the end, these light runes gathered on Heavenly Eye King's right hand. Ancient God unique skill, God's hand. Heavenly Eye King's right hand was covered with countless ancient light runes, totems, symbols, and lines. This godlike right hand pressed down on the chaotic world demonic ape. With a loud boom, the void collapsed. Chapter 587. What kind of powerful method was this? Under the pressure of the palm, even the space was about to collapse, revealing the dark void turbulence. Even with Yi Guqin's calm temperament, his chest was heaving up and down, showing that he was not calm. This technique was too powerful. It was not something that an ordinary expert could do. It was truly earth-shattering, shattering the void. Puff! Where the chaotic world demon ape was, the space that was pressed by the god's hand, revealed countless dark space cracks. This ferocious chaotic world demon ape, who could rival Heavenly Pupil King, was severely injured for the first time. Its 3 heads spat out blood, and its huge body retreated continuously. Evidently, this god's hand had caused it to be heavily injured. Despicable ancient god clan. After being injured, the chaotic world demon ape seemed to be more ferocious. 6 different colored flames burst out from its 6 eyes. 6 demonic flames, are you at your wit's end? Heavenly Pupil King's sonorous voice was heard. Heavenly Pupil King, you must die. The chaotic world demon ape roared. 6 demonic flames spread out, burning the void and causing it to collapse. The ground was scorched as though it had been baptized by endless demonic flames. What a powerful flame! Yi Guqin gasped in amazement. His silent demonic flame was considered strong among the unique flames in the universe. However, Compared to the 6 demonic flames, it was like a firefly compared to the moon. There was no comparison at all. This is the superpower of the chaotic world demon ape clan. Their clan has 3 heads and 6 arms, 6 demonic flames and other superpowers. Heavenly Pupil King explained. Yiguchin nodded slightly. Since he had cultivated the ancient god's skill and become the successor of the ancient gods, he would encounter the chaotic world demon ape clan in the future. It was inevitable that he would encounter the chaotic world demonic ape clan in the future. After all, the chaotic world demonic ape clan was not extinct in this world yet. As the chaotic world demon ape clan took out the 6 demonic flames, Heavenly Pupil King felt the pressure increase. In fact, Heavenly Pupil King's strength was not much stronger than the chaotic world demon ape. Otherwise, Heavenly Pupil King could have killed the chaotic world demon ape long ago. He did not need to spend so much effort to suppress it. Since he could not kill the chaotic world demonic ape, Heavenly Eyes King had no choice but to use the Great Demon Extermination Formation to slowly refine the chaotic world demonic ape. As time passed, the land seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Many parts of Heavenly Eye King's body were charred by the 6 demonic flames. The chaotic world demonic ape also had many wounds on its body and was dripping with blood. However, regardless of whether it was the ancient god clan or the chaotic world demon ape clan, they were known for their strong physical bodies. Therefore, although there were many wounds on their bodies, they were still fighting. However, Yiguchin could also sense that the auras of the Heavenly Pupil King and the chaotic world demonic ape had begun to decline slowly. Although they were all top-tier saints, after such an intense battle, it was impossible for them to maintain their peak level. Roar! The chaotic world demonic ape roared angrily once again. The 6 demonic flames engulfed the Heavenly Eye King. The chaotic world demonic ape's huge body swelled up like a balloon and became even bigger. It looked like it was about to reach the sun and moon. This was one of the racial abilities of the chaotic world demonic apes. Lawful embodiment of heaven-earth. Boom! The chaotic world demonic ape stomped on the Heavenly Eye King's body like a black dome of heaven. The ancient god power surged all over the Heavenly Eye King's body. He raised his hands high as if he was holding up the sun and moon. Boom! Smoke and dust swept out like a sandstorm. The chaotic world demonic ape stomped Heavenly Eye King to the ground and he spat out a mouthful of golden blood. Oh no! Yiguchin's heart skipped a beat. If even the Heavenly Eye King could not suppress the chaotic world demonic ape, the chaotic world demonic ape, which was comparable to a top-tier saint, would be able to escape. Then, not to mention destroying a small 5 elements brute tribe, perhaps the entire South Horizon region would be turned upside down by this chaotic world demonic ape. Ancient God King Seal. The Heavenly Eye King roared angrily. It was like the voice of a divine king that spread across the land. Endless ancient god power gathered in the void and turned into a golden Saint King's seal. It seemed to have a terrifying power that could suppress all things in the world. Boom! The ancient god King's seal pressed down on the chaotic world demonic ape. With a loud bang, the chaotic world demonic ape's huge body flew out and let out a shrill roar. The Heavenly Eye King got out from the ground and gathered ancient god power in his hands again. He then attacked the chaotic world demonic ape. Although the chaotic world demonic ape had suffered many injuries, there was an endless amount of black demonic chi lingering around its body and constantly repairing its physical body. That is the superpower of the chaotic world demonic ape tribe, the indestructible demon body. It is also because of this indestructible demon body that I am unable to kill the chaotic world demonic ape. Unless it is a 6-star ancient god or above who can kill it by force, the Heavenly Eye King said helplessly. If it was possible, the Heavenly Eye King would have killed the chaotic world demonic ape long ago. There was no need to go through so much trouble. However, with his cultivation as a 4-star ancient god, even if he could suppress the chaotic world demonic ape, it would be difficult for him to kill it. Yiguchin could not help but sigh. As the archenemy of the ancient god tribe, the chaotic world demonic ape tribe was indeed powerful. 3 heads and 6 arms, 6 demonic flames, lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, an indestructible demon body. Every superpower was enough to shock the world. When these superpowers were gathered together, they created the chaotic world demonic ape tribe. The heavenly I King seemed to have sensed Yiguchen's surprise and said coldly, "The chaotic world demonic ape tribe was once called the devil monkey tribe. It is only the weakest tribe among the 100 tribes in the universe." Devil monkey tribe? The weakest among the 100 tribes in the universe? Yiguchen was slightly shocked. No matter how he looked at it, the chaotic world demonic ape was definitely not weak. After all, even the ancient god tribe could not destroy it. They are just a group of scum who defected to the foreign tribes. They relied on the power of the foreign tribes to become so strong. This is a disgrace. The heavenly I King said angrily. The foreign tribes? Yiguchen was puzzled. These ancient secrets were too distant and too ancient for him. The heavenly I King did not continue speaking as the chaotic world demonic ape's physical body was beginning to recover. Yiguchen finally felt the power of the chaotic world demonic ape. Fortunately, the ancient god tribe's physical body was also very strong. Otherwise, the chaotic world demonic ape would have exhausted them to death. Boom! 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 The continuous battle was very tragic. With a ripping sound, the heavenly I King tore off one of the chaotic world demonic ape's arms. Boom! The chaotic world demonic ape punched the heavenly I King. This kind of fighting style could be said to be suicidal. They all wanted to kill the other party. 6-path demonic seal, Inferno prison. The chaotic world demonic ape roared. 6 different colored demonic flames formed a fiery hell and imprisoned the heavenly I King. Ancient god immovable king armor. Ancient light runes surged on the surface of the heavenly I King's body and eventually formed a golden armor. It was covered with countless totem runes and had a strong sense of toughness. It was indestructible. Although the chaotic world demonic ape tribe had all kinds of powerful super skills, the ancient god tribe was not to be trifled with. The terrifying 6-path demonic flames hit the ancient god immovable king armor hard and gave off a sizzling sound. The heavenly I King took the opportunity and formed a seal with his hands again. A mysterious and ancient secret power appeared between his eyebrows. Yiguchen could even feel that more than half of the ancient god power in the heavenly I King's heart was sucked dry and poured into the heavenly I King's forehead. Yiguchen knew that the heavenly I King was about to use his trump card. Otherwise, he would be in a disadvantageous position if he continued to delay. Chaotic world demonic ape, if I can suppress you once, I can suppress you a second time. Hidden void eye, open. In an instant, a crack appeared between the heavenly I King's eyebrows and infinite divine light seemed to burst out. A third eye that seemed to be transparent appeared. In an instant, time and space seemed to have frozen. The drifting dust, the broken stones, and the rolling clouds seemed to have been frozen. The heavens and earth were dead silent. Everything in the void, time, space, and all living things were frozen. This was the hidden void. Chapter 588. Yiguchen was shocked. His eyes were filled with unconcealable astonishment. Time and space froze. The void. What kind of power was this? One should know that time and space were related to the supreme existence. The creation of the void and the beginning of the chaos. Was this really a power that a living being could control? Yiguchen's expression was solemn. The battle between the saints had completely refreshed his understanding of power. Yiguchen's vision and breadth of mind were also broadened. He knew that no matter what kind of living being, as long as they cultivated to the peak, they would possess supreme power. Yiguchen's heart was surging and his blood seemed to be boiling. At the same time, his comprehension of all kinds of martial arts cultivation also took a big step forward at this moment. The Eye of the Void was Heavenly I King's trump card. The reason why he was called the Sky Eye Monarch was largely because of this Eye of the Hidden Void. The divine light released from the eye of the void between his eyebrows shone on the chaotic world demonic ape. It caused the time and space around it to almost freeze. The chaotic world demonic ape was like a mosquito sealed in amber. The chaotic world demonic ape could still think and its brain was still working. However, it could not make any movements, make any sounds, move, or resist. This method was too heaven-defying. Just as Heavenly I King used the eye of the void. Yiguchen, who was in his body, also felt that the heart of the ancient god of Heavenly I King was rapidly depleting. Almost endless ancient god power was rapidly evaporating. Obviously, even with Heavenly I King's cultivation and strength, it was not easy to use the eye of the void once. It was very likely that after using it once, it would take a long time before he could use it again. While the eye of the void froze the chaotic world demonic ape, Heavenly I King took the opportunity to attack and kill it. His god's hand blasted out once more. This time, there was no obstruction and it directly hit the chaotic world demonic ape. Moreover, the chaotic world demonic ape could not dodge or move. Boom! 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 The chaotic world demonic ape was hit by Heavenly I King like a punching bag. Due to the surrounding space being frozen, the chaotic world demonic ape could not even be sent flying. With each attack, the chaos demonic ape's aura would plummet. Clearly, God's hand had dealt too much damage to the chaotic world demonic ape. This method is simply too powerful. Even with Yiguchen's personality, he still couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. If he had the eye of the void vault, the enemy would be turned into a human sandbag. They would be meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Boom! When the last killer move was unleashed, the chaos demonic ape's aura had already hit rock bottom. In the past, the chaos demonic ape's strength was comparable to a top-notch saint. But now, he had fallen to the level of an exalted. However, due to the unique racial talent of the chaotic world demonic ape, the indestructible demon body, even though his aura had fallen, he was still alive and was not killed by Heavenly I King. However, at this moment, Yiguchen also felt a sense of exhaustion coming from the ancient god heart. Clearly, the eye of the void vault had consumed too much ancient god power. Coupled with the consumption of God's hand, even Heavenly I King could not bear it. Damn it, I am still unable to kill the chaotic world demonic ape with my strength. Fortunately, I have reduced it to the level of an exalted, so I can seal it again. Heavenly I King's tone was filled with frustration and helplessness. In the next moment, a ball of 5-colored divine radiance came out from Heavenly I King's ancient god heart. It was the ancient god's jade archive. Ancient Tao divine seal. Heavenly I King's loud voice was heard. The ancient god's jade archive shone with boundless divine radiance. In the void, the spirits of the 5 primogenitors, azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and soaring serpent appeared. These totem divine beasts are the companions of the ancient god tribe. They are also good comrades. To a large extent, the reason why the ancient god tribe can control the 5 elements and all things in nature is because we can communicate with and merge with these divine beasts. Heavenly I King's voice was heard. I see. Yiguchen nodded. It was no wonder that the barbarian tribe had such a unique totem power system. It was because they had a thin bloodline of the ancient god tribe that they could cultivate totem power. In the void, the spirits of the 5 primogenitors rotated and turned into a mysterious 5-colored seal. Finally, it turned into a streamer and went into the glabella of the chaotic world demonic ape. Almost at the same time, the power of the eye of the void vault disappeared completely. Heavenly I King's huge ancient god body trembled. In the end, he knelt down on one knee, obviously exhausted. Roar, I can't accept this, Heavenly I King. The chaotic world demonic ape let out a bone-chilling roar and its voice reverberated throughout the area. It covered its head with its arm and the 5-colored seal between its glabella flickered. It was in so much pain that it wished to die. Ah! The chaotic world demonic ape roared and its eyes turned red. The pain was as if a blunt stone axe was slowly splitting its head open. It was not something that an ordinary creature could endure. Compared to the sins that your tribe has committed, this punishment is too light. Heavenly I King's tone was without a trace of pity. In the end, Yi Gu Chen looked at him in astonishment. The towering chaotic world demonic ape, which was hundreds of feet tall, shrank at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Its power faded away like a tide. In the end, it turned into a little black monkey with coarse fur. Its stooped body only reached Yi Gu Chen's calf. It also lost its 3 heads and 6 arms. Other than the 5-colored seal between its glabella, it looked like an ordinary black demon monkey. This is the original appearance of the chaotic world demonic ape, the demonic monkey tribe, Heavenly I King said tiredly. Yi Gu Chen was speechless. Although the chaotic world demonic ape was severely injured and fell from the top saint level, it still had the strength of a top honorable. Now, other than its indestructible body, it was only comparable to the hidden latch of life and death. Just as the chaotic world demonic ape was sealed back into the demonic monkey tribe, Tuoba Shang's body was also separated from the chaotic world demonic ape and thrown aside. Tuoba Shang was covered in dust. The demonic qi in his body had already dissipated and he no longer had the cultivation of the heaven and earth spiritual bridge. Because he had merged with the chaotic world demonic ape, he was also attacked by Heavenly I King. Therefore, Tuoba Shang was in a very sorry state. He was severely injured and many of his bones were broken. Yi Gu Chen walked slowly to Tuoba Shang. No, impossible. I am Tuoba Shang, the king of the barbarian tribe. How could I fail? How could I lose? Tuoba Shang shook his head crazily as if he had lost his mind. He had broken through the life and death cave and reached the hidden latch of life and death at the brink of death. He had also obtained the devil fetus parasitic medium, which was left behind by the chaotic world demonic ape. He had thought that he could successfully become the young king and obtain the inheritance of the 2 great tribes. In the future, he would lead the barbarian tribe to conquer the Saint Origin dynasty and the entire South Sky region. But now, all of his ambitions had burst like bubbles. Yi Gu Chen had defeated him again and again. Why, Yi Gu Chen, why? Tuoba Shang's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. Chapter 589. There's no reason. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Don't you know this principle better than anyone? Yi Gu Chen said indifferently. There was no room for reconciliation between him and Tuoba Shang. The only outcome was that one of them would die. And now, the outcome was clear. Yi Gu Chen, do you dare to bet with me? Let me live. 10 years, no, 5 years. Let's fight again in 5 years. Don't you need a strong opponent to train your sword Dao? I can do it. Tuoba Shang gritted his teeth. His pride did not allow him to lower his head and beg. But Tuoba Shang's ambition made him unwilling to die. His ambition had yet to be realized. A strong opponent, ha! Yi Gu Chen shook his head slightly. His dark eyes seemed to look down on everything. I'm sorry, Tuoba Shang. In my eyes, you were never destined to be my opponent. You're just an obstacle. Yi Gu Chen spoke the truth. If he were to talk about opponents, he had quite a lot of them. He was known as the #1 expert in the Tao of Saber in the Saint Origin dynasty, Gu Zun. He, Gu Zun, and the top of the Forbidden City had fought each other. Moreover, there was Gu Xiaoyang, the seat of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion. He was a peerless genius with 2 talents and one of the top 10 childs of the South Sky region. Wasn't such an existence more difficult to deal with than Tuoba Shang? Therefore, Tuoba Shang's claim that he was Yi Gu Chen's destined opponent was a little too arrogant. Yi Gu Chen, you. Veins popped out on Tuoba Shang's forehead. An incomparable grievance, anger, and unwillingness were brewing in his mind. He was the barbarian race's 5-crown king, the #1 of the younger generation, but he was not worthy to be Yi Gu Chen's opponent. How humiliating was that? Yiguchen, die. Tuoba Shang suddenly jumped up. He gathered the last bit of strength in his body, and punched Yiguchen's heart. Yiguchen's face was calm. Blood light flashed in his hand and the blood prison sword swept across the sky. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. Tuoba Shang suddenly saw his headless body fall to the ground after taking a few futile steps. How? Tuoba Shang looked confused. Gulp. Tuoba Shang's head rolled into a cloud of dust. Tuoba Shang, a prodigy of the berserker race, had fallen. Yiguchen exhaled lightly and put away the blood hell sword. The disaster of the berserkers had finally ended. Humph. To think that there is such a despicable existence among the descendants of our tribe. Heavenly I King looked at Tuoba Shang indifferently. Even though Tuoba Shang's ancient god clan's bloodline was relatively strong, since he had helped the evildoers and borrowed the power of the chaotic world demonic ape clan, he was unforgivable and should be killed. Squeak, squeak, at this moment, the pitch-black little monkey beside Yiguchen's feet tugged at Yiguchen's trousers. It opened its round, pitch-black eyes and seemed to be rather curious. It actually began to circle Yiguchen's ankles. Yiguchen was momentarily stunned. The chaotic world demonic ape that had been engaged in a destructive battle with Heavenly I King was now playing around his ankles. Wasn't this contrast a little too big? The ancient Tao God seal of the ancient God clan not only seals its power, but also its memories. Heavenly I King was not surprised at all. With its cultivation and memories sealed, no matter how strong the chaotic world demonic ape was, it could not cause any trouble. Yiguchen looked at the little black monkey and even felt that it was a little cute. This kind of feeling was really a little strange. Then how should we deal with it? Yiguchen asked. Heavenly I King casually made a hand seal and the 5-colored mark between the little black monkey's eyebrows released a ball of light. Then, the ancient god Jade Archive returned to Yiguchen's hands. Yiguchen was puzzled. I used the power in the ancient god Jade Archive to perform the ancient god seal to seal the chaotic world demonic ape. The ancient god Jade Archive is the only key to unlocking the seal. Yiguchen's eyes flashed. Heavenly I Monarch continued, the remaining power in the ancient god's Jade Archive can support you to break the seal twice. That is to say, you have 2 chances to break the seal of the chaotic world demonic ape and let it fight for you. Of course, there cannot be a 3rd time. If you unlock the seal a 3rd time, the ancient god Jade Archive will not have any more power to seal the chaotic world demonic ape again. At that time, the chaotic world demonic ape will be completely unlocked and regain its memories. There is such a way to control it. Yiguchen could not help but sigh. This was equivalent to having another venerable realm fighter, although he only had 2 chances. Of course. You are already the successor that I, Heavenly I King, have acknowledged. This is your first opportunity, your life-saving talisman. Heavenly I King said. First opportunity. Yiguchen thought to himself. Does this mean that there is a second opportunity? Heavenly I King's tone was extremely tired. The second opportunity is the 4th level of the ancient god technique. I, Heavenly I King, am a 4-star ancient god. Therefore, I only have a 4-star ancient god technique at most. After Heavenly I King finished speaking, a ray of light entered Yiguchen's sea of consciousness. The cultivation method of a 4-star ancient god technique immediately appeared in Yiguchen's mind. Previously, Yiguchen only had a 3-star ancient god technique. Now, he could cultivate it to a 4-star ancient god technique. The 3rd opportunity is my Eye of the Void. Heavenly I King said. Senior Heavenly I King, please don't. This is your opportunity. Yiguchen said. He did not mind accepting the first 2 opportunities. However, the Eye of the Void was too precious. Yiguchen did not want to take away Heavenly I King's opportunity. It's fine. I'm only here to suppress. The battle just now has exhausted me. Even if I'm lucky enough to survive, I can only sleep. Rather than letting the eye of the void accompany me to sleep, I'd rather give it to you. Heavenly Eye King was rather generous. In the next moment, Heavenly Eye King's glabella split open. A ray of bright light turned into a ray of light and entered Yiguchen's glabella. Yiguchen immediately felt a supreme, vast and mysterious power in his glabella. Remember, the power of the Eye of the Void is too vast. Your cultivation realm is too low and you don't have the ability to activate it. If you want to activate it, you'll need a large amount of ancient god power and soul power. If you're not strong enough, you'll suffer great losses. Heavenly Eye King warned. Yiguchen nodded slightly. He also felt that he did not have the ability to activate the Eye of the Void. Even if he forced himself to activate it, he would suffer a backlash and its power would not be as strong as Heavenly Eye King's. As for the last opportunity, it's my ancient god's heart. Heavenly Eye King's voice sounded weak. Senior, this. Yiguchen turned pale. The ancient god's heart was the core of the ancient god clan's power. If Heavenly Eye King gave it to Yiguchen, how could he survive? It's fine. The ancient god's heart is only the source of power, not the source of life. Whether I have the ancient god's heart or not, I'll still sleep. Heavenly Eye King said. Subsequently, a ray of golden light shot out from Heavenly Eye King's body and entered Yiguchen's body. Yiguchen immediately felt that the majestic ancient god's heart in his body started to beat. Drops of ancient god blood flowed out from the heart and started to refine Yiguchen's body. The ancient god blood was the best way to refine one's body. Yiguchen could not help but roar. Countless ancient light runes appeared on the surface of his body and the star mark between his eyebrows appeared. Yiguchen could not help but activate his ancient god form. Under the baptism of the ancient god's blood, Yiguchen broke through to one-star ancient god without any hindrance. An extremely bright star mark appeared between Yiguchen's eyebrows. At the same time, his physical strength increased by 5 times after activating his ancient god form. When Yiguchen was still a half-star ancient god, his ancient god form could only increase his physical strength by 3 times at most. Now, it was 5 times. One could imagine how powerful Yiguchen's physical strength would be if it was multiplied by 5 times. Needless to say, after becoming a 1-star ancient god, Yiguchen could finally use some of the ancient god techniques recorded in the ancient god tactics. Yiguchen's strength had taken another big step forward. It could be said that with his 1-star ancient god body, Yiguchen could contend with experts at the life and death realm. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.